Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to special coverage from Badlands Media, and it's also streaming on our channels, I believe. You're up there, right, Ash? Yeah. On our own channels as well.
Brian, there's no evidence of election fraud. There's no evidence of election fraud. There are, glitches and human errors and administrative, mistakes that happen, but there's no evidence of election fraud. And there's certainly no evidence that the, election fraud that doesn't exist could have overturned the outcome of any race.
This is one of the biggest bombshells that we've seen thus far. One of the biggest. And granted, we still got a long way to go.
Yes.
Granted, we got a long way to go. We're not there yet, but this is huge. This is absolutely huge. So, all right, hold on. Yeah, it's streaming. I'm live. You guys just got to hit refresh. All right, so there we go. Yeah, this is like a prequel. One person, one vote says a Why We Vote prequel. Yeah, this is going to be like a two-part thing.
Yeah.
Part one. And so, yeah. This is going to result in prosecutions, and it comes out
going to prison. I think it's going to result in convictions.
Yeah, and it comes out in this hearing that we're going to go through that there is in fact an open DOJ investigation right now going on in Fulton County, Georgia. Yeah, let's get right into this. And so yesterday there was a hearing at the Georgia State Election Board, and Joe Rossi was finally able to speak. Finally.
So we covered the hearing that is in question at the beginning of this thing, the hearing where the text messages came out and that whole thing. That is,
there's several hearings, but that was one of them. Yes.
Right. At the beginning of this, the premise for why we're doing this now is this was not handled correctly in the past. He didn't get a chance to actually speak. We had Charlene McGowan up there, debunking everything, and then everybody standing on her authority. And this is a tactic that we've seen. This is the same thing that happened at the Legislative Audit Committee meeting in 2020 when Sean Smith was there to speak, and they waited like 6 hours, and then he got a tiny little bit of time and diminished in this. Oh, we had a hearing and it's all been debunked. That is now, to me, the most unbelievable thing. You text me, you're like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, the only unbelievable thing about this is that it's being heard. The fact that we are actually seeing this get the time that it deserves. So that in and of itself is huge. I'd also like to say, before we jump right into the hearing, shout out to the patriots in Georgia who have been relentless and courageous and have not let up, even with personal consequences. I'm talking about Rossi and Moncla and Phil Davis and Holly Kessler and Garland Favorito, people who have not let up on this, because this matter was dealt with. It already had its hearing, right? Yeah. And now it's coming back around. Okay.
So this is part of State Election Board Complaint 2023-025, and I think it's 2023-1 or 2022-181. I believe. And this is, we're going to play the whole thing. It's going to be on like 1.5 speed. The bombshell doesn't come until closer to the end. So you guys are going to have to wait for that. You guys are going to have to wait for it. Promise you it's worth it. It's worth it. It is infuriatingly shocking, it's infuriatingly shocking. But like Ash says, it's more shocking that it was able to come out, because this is big. All right. So here we go. Let's just jump right in. This is Joe Rossi speaking about the duplicates.
And then it was another, until November of that same year, I got a letter saying that the case was in the category of violations found. So,
okay. So real quick, he's just explaining the timeline for this complaint to actually get heard and how it took months on months and months. And people deterred them from it. They took it off of hearings, off of minutes, off of schedules. They removed it without any real reason given, all sorts of things.
So this investigation for this particular question had started in April of 23, and in November of 23, it was supposedly complete and in the category of violations found. I think that letter actually came from the board prior to your being the chairman. But I struggle with, you have this case, it takes a long time to be heard. And then there's this kind of double team investigation. Ms. McGowan started communicating with me in the fall of 23, saying it's almost complete, you know. So this is like April to November. And then they put it on the SEB December 19th meeting. And the week before, they're not able to answer basic questions. So all I'll say to that, it sure seems like either gross incompetence or someone was trying to not get to the answers or get to the truth for one reason or another. So I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
That pretty much addressed the next question. So I'm going to skip question 4 because that basically was why did it take 2 years from filing a complaint for this to come up. The next question was the complainants were informed that they would not be permitted to rebut the Secretary of State investigators at this meeting. I'm assuming that's the May 7th meeting. Note for SEB 2021-181, which was initiated by the governor's letter that was sent on 11/17/2021. The complainants were allowed to speak after the SOS investigator, Mr. Zagorin, completed his report out. Furthermore, Ryan Germany, who was the SOS attorney at the time, sent an email on July 29, 2022. And in that email, he stated, this case, SEB 2023-025, will be back before the SEB prior to being resolved. And at that point, you could, of course, weigh in just like in the initial hearing of SEB 2021-181. So the question is, why were the complainants not permitted to rebut the McGowan team report out? Anyone remember? No.
I'm trying to find a note that may or may not have.
Member King, while you're looking for an answer to that question, I think that's a very important question. I do want to compliment the board today. This was refreshing. You gave every respondent and every complainant the opportunity to come up here and be heard. My question is, for a case of this importance that now is in the hands of the Department of Justice, why were the complainants never allowed, even after multiple attempts? I hate to say it, but the co-complainant and I were literally begging with this board to get a chance to rebut. And the investigative team led by Ms. McGowan, I think they got almost 2 hours, if not more. And we just had to sit there and listen to what we knew was not necessarily factual without any opportunity to rebut. So my question is, what happened between 181 when Ryan Germany invited me to rebut? He told me that we would get a chance to rebut for 25. And then on May 7th, we were basically shut down. And now all of a sudden, it is refreshing, frustrating, I'll be honest with you, but refreshing that you guys have changed that practice, I guess, because now you're calling complainants respondents. So that part is refreshing. I simply don't understand what happened on May 7th. I could speculate. I won't do that now. But yeah, I think it would have made a big difference had we had a chance to respond on the spot. And even after multiple emails, like I said, I felt like we were begging for response time, but that was to no avail.
And I have to add, I remember during the July meeting, we heavily debated that as well. I think they wanted to speak again, and it was told that they were not allowed to. Next question.
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I mean, I made some notes about all this 2020 stuff. And I know that during the May 2024 meeting, Mr. Rossi spoke for about 2.5 minutes during public comment. And I have a note that he also addressed the board during discussion of SEB 2023-025.
I think it's fair to say that 2 minutes.
No,
that's
in addition to the public comment. That during discussion of it, he addressed the board. That's.
And I got my 2 minutes. Thank you.
Didn't you address the board additionally during the discussion period?
From what I recall, I got my 2 minutes. And then during the discussion, Mr. Lindsay allowed me to come up and speak for 7 minutes, I believe, during the discussion with Ms. McGowan. However, that is nothing to be, those 2 minutes and that 7 minutes on the spot is not comparable to the respect that should have been given the complainants up front, saying, you're going to get a chance to respond and prepare. I mean, all I had was what was in my head. I didn't come with 3 investigators behind me and all our experts with me. So again, to equate 2.5 minutes in an off the cuff 7-minute call out to have me come up there is just not equatable, sir. With all due respect.
Okay, I understand. But you and I also spent, and remember Jeffrey spent about 1.5 hours one day talking about this case. Prior to that, correct?
Again, that was not a rebuttal, sir.
No,
that was prior to the case.
You're right.
The purpose of a fair hearing is to have one side speak and the opposite side
let you speak
get
once.
a chance to either agree with or disagree,
right,
which is what you've done for this meeting. So please don't equate the lunch meeting, the 2.5 minutes or 7 minutes with a fair rebuttal from the 2.5 hour McGowan presentation, sir.
I'm just saying we have discussed this, you and I.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just have a couple of quick comments, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rossi, thank you for your patience, your determination, and your heart in doing what you've done. I personally believe that justice delayed is justice denied. And as we go through all these cases and I'm asking the questions about how long it's been since the complaints were initiated and the investigation time and the time to even get, from the Secretary of State's investigator's office to the SEB. And remember, I'm new, so I'm learning the process, right? And none of it makes sense to me. I'm just going to be completely honest about that. None of this is making sense to me because this is not what happens in the real world. In the real world, you don't delay people like this. In the real world, you look at all sides of the coin. You give people equal time. You have access to the people you need to have access to. And this makes me want to vomit. And tomorrow afternoon at 4:00, I'll be at a Senate ethics hearing with Dr. Johnston and going to address some of these things because this is not a legitimate process for people who deserve to be served and heard. And so from the bottom of my heart, as a person, not even as a board member, I am very sorry that you and people like you have been denied. And I think that's a travesty, and I'm sorry.
The next question was at the May 7th, 2024 hearing, Ms. McGowan stated that the investigation also shows that there are some duplicate ballot images that Fulton County provided, and this suggests that some ballots may have been scanned more than once. But what cannot be decided conclusively or confirmed conclusively is whether or not those duplicate ballot images were included in the count. Such an assertion, that's her end of her quote. Such an assertion by Ms. McGowan after nearly 2 years of investigation was either disingenuous or grossly negligent. The fact is that at least 3,125 ballots that the complainants have identified were scanned twice and counted twice. This is easily corroborated by the records. For every ballot that is successfully scanned and counted, a ballot image is produced with a unique file name. Included in the tabulator image is a page called an audit mark that shows how the ballot was read by the tabulator, the votes which were counted, along with a timestamp detailing when the ballot was physically scanned. The original ballot image scan shows one file name and timestamp, and the ballot image of the second scan shows a different file name and a later timestamp. That same ballot has been scanned twice, thereby producing two uniquely identified ballot images, and both have in fact been counted in the CVR cast vote record, which is posted on the SOS website. So the question is, why was the McGowan team permitted to present misinformation such as this to the board without being challenged other than by Dr. Johnston? Okay. Mm-hmm.
I have a few things I want to share with the board what they missed out on because we were not allowed to speak. Mr. Chairman, I want to ask you again, maybe, why were you so obstinate not allowing the co-complainants to rebut? Were you given direction by the Secretary of State or Ms. McGowan? But you just seemed so against, and being a person of leadership and industry for many years, certainly understand common fairness. Why were you so opposed to giving us response time? Can you answer that? Was somebody telling you to do that, or was that your own choice?
I don't, it was my second board meeting ever with this board.
Doesn't matter. Fairness is fairness.
I don't recall exactly what the rules were at that time with that board and why, but I seem to recall that the complainants were not offered opportunities. And you may ask Dr. Johnson. And,
did you think that was fair personally, sir?
Pardon me?
Did you think that was fair personally?
Well,
be honest, John. Was that fair? If you had to do it all, let me give it out. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do?
My mindset at that point is totally different than my mindset 2 years later. Okay.
Okay. So that's what I'm asking. If you had to,
my second meeting chairing the board.
Okay.
And I was trying to conduct the board in the way the board had been conducted in the past.
Well, there's always a chance to get better. So let me ask you, if you had to do it all over again, would you have given us a chance to rebut?
Well, the board has changed its procedures and policies now, and you've seen that I've agreed with that as we have gone through the meeting. So I said my mindset, after spending 2 years on this board and understanding how it operates and the changes, we've made tremendous amount of changes, and we do things differently now than we did back then. So
this is like high school debate, though. One person gets the debate, the other side gets the debate. But I like your response. It sounds like you would have probably done things differently, is what I'm hearing you say. So thank you for that.
I'm just saying it is, you learn a lot in 2 years. So
well, let me show you what you missed, okay? And bear with us. It's late, but I've been waiting years for this, and I think public citizens have been waiting.
Oh, so, pause it. I loved that moment. I backed it up and listened to it again when I heard it the first time because it's so true. And as I said at the top, these guys have been so relentless and haven't had their chance to be heard with very real issues and evidence that dispute what we've been told. And you can hear it in his voice there. I have been waiting years for this. I'm taking my time. I'm reclaiming my time.
So I'm not, obviously, I didn't write this report, but I read this report before it was filed. I went over this report. I've interviewed Mr. Rossi, although I'm not as familiar with Rossi as I am with Kevin, right? Kevin is a friend of mine at this point after 4 years of back and forth with him. And I am overcome with like vindication, joy, everything. And I'm not the person that did all the hard work. I did work on the reporting and getting stories out there and trying to bring public awareness. They're the ones that did the grind on this. I mean, I'm talking like daily work on this, and for 4 years. And then the fights to get it in front of people, learning the laws, learning the rules, learning the procedures. And now it's vindication. Joe Rossi has got to be like on cloud 9 right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
don't know
Can
if
you
I-
back it up 10 seconds?
Yeah, I'm going to slow this part down.
I have
Understanding how it
Let me put it on normal speed here because you got to hear the emotion in this.
operates and the changes. We've made tremendous amount of changes and we do things differently now than we did back then. So
Yeah, this is like high school debate, though. One person gets to debate, the other side gets to debate. But I like your response. It sounds like you would have probably done things differently is what I'm hearing you say. So thank you for that.
I'm just saying it is, you learn a lot in 2 years. So
Well, let me show you what you missed, okay? And bear with us, it's late, but I've been waiting years for this, and I think public citizens have been waiting. So I don't know if I'll have to ask Mr. Favorito to get up here, but Ms. McGowan.
He has, real quick, Mr. Favorito has permission from from Kevin Mockler.
Yeah,
to speak.
I don't know if we'll need him. Hopefully I can,
He's the person on the case.
hopefully I can explain it, but if I stumble, I'll ask Mr. Favorito to help me. I'm going to do it in the simple way, and the simple way may be easier to understand than what someone who's a technical expert understands. Here's what you missed in the board meeting. Because we were not allowed to rebut. Ms. McGowan said that, yeah, the ballots were double scanned twice.
I'm going to slow it down so that people understand what's being said here, like clearly.
But they were, we can't verify that they were counted. Well, as that statement said, we know that when a ballot is scanned, it creates a ballot image. And for one ballot, there were multiple ballot images, and those ballot images go to the cast vote record. And when you have one ballot with 2 ballot images, you have 2 votes counted. Now, here's the part that I think is really concerning that you guys never got a chance to see. So this is a chart completed by our experts, okay? And I think there were some comments around, well, maybe somebody just made an administrative error, and we had a stack of ballots over here that were somebody thought weren't scanned, so we just grabbed that stack of ballots and we ran them through the scanner again. Human error.
Let me pause right there. Guys, does that chart look familiar to anybody? Does that chart look familiar to you guys?
If you watch Why We Vote, it should.
If you watch Why
Shout
We
out to
Vote,
Phil.
that chart is from Phil Davis, Mad Liberals, and we did like a 7-part series on Why We Vote with Phil, going through all of this. And that chart and many more. That's just one chart. There are, dozens of charts like that. And he's and Joe is going to explain. Mr. Rossi is going to explain here what it means.
This chart is very
Mad _liberals on X. If you don't follow Phil already, you should.
Yeah.
And we ran them through the scanner again. Human error. This chart is very complicated, but let me explain this chart in very simple terms using some color paper. This is what happened, and this is what our experts can prove and have proven. And this is what y'all missed because we were not given a chance to rebut.
All right, we can
Stack of yellow ballots.
All right, here we go.
All right. So this stack of yellow ballots. I apologize for my shaking. It's a physical disability. I'm sorry. You can hold the chart up, sure. If you could stop me from shaking, that would be even better, Lois. But I'll do my best. All right, we got pink ballots, yellow ballots, and I hope you all pay attention to this. Yes, James left, and blue ballots. And let's say we run these ballots through one scanner. Okay, scanner one. Batch one, scanner one. Batch two, scanner two. Batch three, scanner three. So the thought is, well, maybe somebody was in a hurry and they just said, hey, it's late in the day, we forgot to scan this batch of ballots, go scan them. That's not what happened. Here's what happened. And I'm going to ask you one question. Is this administrative error? Somebody, I don't know who, and I don't even know why, took ballots from this batch, not necessarily from the top, maybe from the middle. And oh, by the way, flipped them in reverse order. Okay. And then they went to the next batch. Again, not taken from the top, I'm not taken from the middle. And made a new batch. And guess what they did with that new batch? They took that batch and ran it through a different scanner, let's say scanner 4, and oh, by the way, on a different day. So my question is that an administrative error? I believe that was intentional human intervention. And I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers tell me that intentional human intervention is the predicate for election fraud.
Yes.
And again, you guys missed that little demonstration because we were not permitted to rebut the present out. But I hope that clarifies.
Pause it.
And we
So Michelle over on X said, is this live or from 2020? This is from last night, correct?
Yesterday.
From yesterday. Yeah. And it's a 9-hour hearing or 11 hours. The whole
Yeah,
hearing
but it's
is
not, but
it's not all elections, but right.
No, it is all elections, but it's not all Joe Rossi.
There is a Georgia Senate ethics hearing coming up that we're going to stream after this. And so it's breaking in the sense that it's within the past 24 hours. This is not from 2020.
Yeah.
So I want to we've had new people join us. So I want to make sure everybody knows this is new information. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's being discussed is stuff that we've known, we've covered. These guys have been, as we said, dogs with bones, won't let it go, courageous and persistent and bringing it about. But this is the first time this is being heard in this way.
And again, I want to we teased this. There is a huge bombshell coming up here. If you know what it is already, don't spoil it for everybody because you got to hear this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call on Garland. I'm sorry, but I think we've beat this dead horse. But the votes were scanned twice, counted twice, and it was not an administrative error, and we can prove that. All right, thank you for that.
Prove
Do you
it.
remember how many?
3,125. Since that time, we've determined it's up to 3950, Garland, something like that. What's the new? 3930.
Okay.
But they're going through this continuously. As you know, the case is at the DOJ level at this point. Yes.
Mr. Rossi,
There it is. As you know, this case is at the DOJ level at this point. There it is. There it is.
Do you have a breakdown of who the votes were actually for of the double vote?
This is the perfect response from Mr. Rossi right here.
And hang on a second. To your point, the DOJ, right? You just mentioned the DOJ. What did President Trump say yesterday in Davos?
Exactly.
He said people are going to be prosecuted soon for 2020 election fraud. And then today we hear there is already a DOJ investigation, and I'm not going to spoil the end of this hearing. So
wait till you see the bombshell, because that is where the prosecution is going to come.
That wasn't the bombshell, because you had said right before you said there it is, you had said there's a bombshell.
Oh no, that's not the bombshell.
That's not the bombshell.
That's not the
But
bombshell.
it is confirmation that there is a federal investigation into election fraud in Fulton County from 2020. Huzzah.
Yeah. And again, guys, share this out. If you guys are watching whichever platform, on ours, on Badlands, wherever you're watching, share this out. Everybody needs to see this. Don't worry, Ash and I will be clipping this out for digestible versions for normies that have the attention span of goldfish. We got you guys too.
Go back 30
I don't
seconds
have
and
that.
play the DOJ part again. People are asking.
The votes were scanned twice, counted twice, and it was not an administrative error, and we can prove that. All right, thank you for that part.
do you remember how many?
3,125. Since that time, we've determined it's up to 3950, Garland, something like that. What's the new? 3930.
Okay.
But they're going through this continuously. As you know, the case is at the DOJ level at this point. Yes.
Mr. Rossi, do you have a breakdown of who the votes were actually for of the double votes?
I don't have that breakdown. No, I have a count of how many there were and where each one and when scanned. I'm sure our expert can do a breakdown. To me, the breakdown is irrelevant. If it was more for Trump, it doesn't matter. It's still fraud.
But the point is
So-
whether one candidate benefited or not, because that certainly would give some indication of the motive. If it was disproportionate, if it disproportionately aided one candidate, that would be indicative of a motive.
Ms. Gonzalez, that's a great question.
Great question.
After understanding all this, and this is my hypothesis, I do not think there was necessarily a motive. Some people may be disappointed in me saying that. I don't necessarily think there was a motive to favor one candidate or the other. What I do know is factually, after the machine count 2 was done on Wednesday night at midnight, December 2nd.
Now listen to this part right here, because I was telling Ash before the show, this is very narrow scoped on State Election Board Complaint 2023-025. It's a very narrow, it's only one issue out of many, many issues.
The
And to be
shuffled
honest with
batches
you- right.
is the
and
issue.
The duplicate batches. And to be honest with you, this is kind of the smaller out of all the issues. This is the low-hanging fruit issue. Not to take anything away from Mr. Rossi. Well, I mean, I'm not, because it's his report. So, but this is the low-hanging fruit. And this is just a glimpse into some of the other stuff. Check this out.
They ran a batches loaded report. That batches loaded report added to 511,000 votes. The certified or the original machine count was, I'm going to round it off, 528,000 votes. So they were 17,000 votes short. Richard Barron, the next day on Thursday, sends the batches loaded report. We call it batches loaded report 1, the one that was short, 511. He runs that report at noon 06 on Thursday, December 3rd. Okay, noon 06 on Thursday. At noon 13, he sends that report in an email. We've got the email to Ryan Macias. I don't know who Ryan Macias is, but I know he was maybe a consultant that worked for the election group. I don't know.
He knows who Ryan Macias is.
Why he sent it to him. I could speculate saying, hey, Ryan, we're in deep doo-doo here. We're only at 511. What do we do? Well, Richard Barron testified on Friday of that certification week that they were short. He said, we knew we were short. He said, we called the state. I'm assuming that's the Secretary of State's office. And the state told them, you could look at the video of his December 4th report out before they certified the election. He said the state told us we had till noon on Friday to certify. But anyways, to get back to your question, I am skeptical that somebody was in there saying, give us more Trump votes, give us more Biden votes. I think what happened was they didn't have enough votes.
Yep.
And they were desperate. Again, I'm speculating based on pressure from the Secretary of State's office to get to that 527. So how do you get to 527? You double scan votes. How else do you get to 527? You scan illegal votes. How else do you get to 527? You scan votes, but there are no ballot images for them, 17,000. So hopefully eventually all this is going to come out. I'm sharing with you what you guys missed, the opportunity to get to the bottom of this prior to this ever going to the DOJ, simply because you would not let the complainants respond to what was a severely flawed 2.5 hour present out.
Okay, so just to summarize real quick what Mr. Rossi is saying there. After the second machine count, remember they did 3 counts in Georgia, machine count 1, a hand recount, and then another machine count. The second machine count 2, as we refer to it.
December 3rd.
Yeah.
That we're talking about. It is a month after the election. Go ahead.
Machine count 2 is the certified results. That is the only results that are official, right? When they had a deadline on December 2nd at midnight, Rick Barron, who was the director at the time, elections director, he emails Ryan Macias, a non-contracted elections group, that's the name of the NGO worker, who's not contracted with Fulton County, emails him, hey, what's going on? We're off by 17,000. What the heck? We're in trouble. The only reason, and I'll say this, the only reason that Kevin and Joe found this is because they were doing open records requests, and this email for something else. And this came up, and there was an attachment to it, and they saw the attachment. And so they were able to look at that, and then that sent them down a whole nother rabbit hole. And so on December 2nd, they have 511,000 votes in Fulton County. They need 528,000. That's how many were reported. And so those 17,000 come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden Rick Barron has 528,000, and nobody knows how it happened.
Except he sent it to the elections group, and after that it matched.
Right.
Remind me, Brian, or correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Ryan Macias involved in the election in Ukraine?
So is Rick Barron.
Fascinating.
Both of them did elections for the State Department in Ukraine. Yeah.
If folks don't remember who Ryan Macias is, he's the guy who was attending Carrie Lake's trial from another room inside of the court and reading, obviously, according to all of our own, upon information and belief, he was reading based on our own eyes, reading off of a screen, and he just lied about it. And the judge was like, we'll dox your time if you ask him about the fact that he's reading in violation of the rules of procedure any longer. So that's who Ryan Macias is. Used to work for the EAC.
If I recall correctly, some of the discrepancy was identified because they had named two different batches identically. So when they uploaded one batch, it overwrote the first one in that same name. I don't know that was the total amount, but that was reported as accounting for part of the discrepancy.
Yeah, my co-complainant is an expert on that, but I don't, from what I recall, I don't think that's necessarily factual. That's what the Secretary of State's office reported. But again, he's not here. We can certainly follow up with him and get that answer to that question. I showed you what I know happened with the duplicates. I told you what was going on with the 511 versus 527. My hypothesis, they didn't have enough legitimate ballots. They were pressured to get the 528, and they did.
Okay. And to be clear, because everybody wasn't there like myself, you're talking about what county?
Well, if you think you were fuming on Fulton County, this is Fulton County. But I forgot to mention, before I'm done, I'm going to present to you some factual, I'll always be factual, and very, very serious data that we have uncovered recently on Fulton County. And it is going to...
Can you put it?
I'm going to do it again. First of all, I think it's going to make the governor very, very mad because his team spent a lot of time on this. But let me hold off on that. And I think it's going to be so serious that this board is going to have to act on.
So to be clear again.
Okay, I will just say at this point, and I'm gonna name drop a little bit right here, but I was texting Mr. Rossi to see if I can get him to come on for an interview, and he calls me. And he's like, I haven't listened to it yet. So can you send me the whole video when you're done clipping it out? And I was like, yeah, sure. I haven't gotten to your bombshell yet. And I'm pretty up to speed on everything having to do with this story, right? I mean, I'm kind of the guy that's been reporting on this all along. And I have no idea what it is. So I'm like sitting here texting Ash and I'm like, hey, you got to go to this part of this clip. And I'm like, I have no idea what it is. So here we go. We're still not there. You guys got to deal with a bunch of stuff first.
This is nobody really said this yet, I don't think. The 2020 election in Fulton County.
Yes, sir.
That you're talking about.
Yes.
Where you thought the ballots, this is your opinion, where you thought they came up short to have a matching count, where they run through different machines.
For which count? The second machine count, the first machine count? They were run through different scanners, yes.
What was it on every count that they were run through different scanners, or?
They were.
Oh, Garland's in the chat. Garland, send Garland a link. Just send him a link. Get him on here. Get on here, Garland.
Were run through the first machine count. They were run through tabulators, I believe. And then when they did the second machine count, Garland, you could probably help me, but I think they moved some of the precinct scanners all into one area, if I'm not mistaken. So they ran through the scanners 2 months later is what they did.
Okay.
All I know is I looked at the ballot image file and it came up 18,000 short. And I manually added the ballot totals for every precinct on ballot images on a spreadsheet.
And they were short. Yes.
And short.
Do we want to belabor this or do we want to move on?
If you don't have the ballot images, then you need to go to the original document, ballot. And like I've said before, somebody is moving heaven and earth not to see the ballots or count the ballots.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
By the way, I'll give you guys a little breaking news right here. And this is depressing news. There's been a lot of talk about, we're going to get the ballots because the judge ordered we're going to get the ballots. I've been talking about we're going to get the ballots. We're not going to get the ballots from that. The subpoena that the judge named does not name the ballots in the subpoena. So the judge's ruling from Judge McBurney that they have to comply with the subpoena will not apply. As of right now, it is not expected to comply with the ballots are not expected to be part of the compliance with that subpoena. So there's still, and there is a subpoena for the ballots. There is a subpoena, and the judge in his ruling references 2 subpoenas, but he doesn't specify it in the order. So there's speculation that it's not going to include the ballots. We will see.
Why are you dooming out on speculation in the middle of a good news stream? You're dooming out on speculation
because she makes it a point here that they're moving heaven and earth to stop the ballots from being exposed, and they're still moving heaven and earth to stop the ballots from being exposed. And now I don't think there's anything on earth that can stop it at this point. The DOJ's involved. Something like this comes out, and then the bombshell that's about to come out. Those ballots will be in the DOJ possession if they have to send in the damn Marines.
Press play.
We didn't let Mr. Favre read. Oh, okay.
Do you want to hear from Garland or not? Okay,
Very quickly.
Go ahead.
I thank you. Thank you. This is a really important case. I want to first of all thank Joe. I'll be very quick. We won't take more than about 5 or 6 minutes. Joe and Rossi, and we got a little slide deck that they're going to show. And and you've got a handout because I didn't know if you had could see or not. But I want to thank Joe and Kevin Moncla. And just say I want to add just a couple of things. This is some information I'm going to give you. It's a combination of theirs. David Cross, Philip Davis, who testified before you on July 9th, along with me about this case. And after the chairman sent it into executive session, which tried to prevent us from testifying. But anyway, just really quickly, I also want to thank Joe Moraldo, who has a big piece on this. Let's just talk about something we can all agree on real quickly. This is a certification flow. Physical ballots are scanned. They produce ballot images. The ballot images are tabulated. They produce cast vote records. The cast vote records are aggregated, and they produce the statement of votes cast, which is certified. That's the certification flow. And what you're looking there is you can see that along that process, you have slog files from the scanning, TIFF and SHA files from the ballot images. TIFF is the image, SHA is the signature that verifies that image, and then the cast vote records, the CVR files, are produced as part of the certification process. And you can go to the second slide. To add to what Joe is saying, these are the missing electronic ballot sources that we have found as a result of the 5 individuals who I consider to be the experts in this case statewide. So as I think Vice Chair Johnston just said, the 17,852 missing ballot images. These are some of the things that are in this case that we have not talked about. The 380,000 ballot images missing, and 512 of the SHA files were missing. You total all that up, you've got about 1 million electronic ballot source records missing from the 2020 Fulton County election. And going to the third slide, we keep hearing that the counts matched up. And again, thanks to Joe's work and being dogmatic, we now know that they never have matched up. If you can look at I put up here, these are actual certified published results from the Secretary of State. You've got a 4,880 vote difference between the recount and the original votes. The recount never matched what or the hand count matched the original results. And thanks to Joe taking that to the governor's office, even the Governor Kemp now agrees with us on that. There was only 852 ballots difference between the original recount. But then I want to move you to the fourth slide. And this comes from Philip Davis, who is the image expert who looked at this, 30-year career image analyst expert. And he identifies that even though it's an 852 difference, the actual difference when you compare all this is over 11,873 because you have 5,800 ballot images that were missing in the recount that were scanned in the original count. You have 3,930 double counted ballot images, as Joe has explained. Only 470 were double counted in the original count. You've got 1,330 new ballot images in the recount that were never in the original count. And then Philip Davis found about 250 test ballot images in the recount as well. So we can speculate as to motive and so on. I don't want to speculate. I just want to give you the facts. Those are the facts that were withheld from you by the Secretary of State's office for the last 5 years. And I want to just close with one little thing. I think you need to pay very close attention. I would ask you to pay very close attention with Joe's last comment, which was there seems to be a backfilling of the results to make them match. That occurred on December 4th with the elections group involved with it. Why was the elections group handling that? They did not even have a contract with Fulton County. Nope. But as Joe said, there was this actual file was sent to Ryan Macias by Director Barron, and then suddenly everything added up. But it looks like to me that they backfilled 16 or 17,000 votes to make it happen. All this requires more investigation, I understand, but I just want to make sure you had an overview of the facts. And I'm sure Kevin Moncla is really happy that you're hearing this today, so we want to thank you.
On December 3rd.
Mr. Rossi. Oh, yes, I do have 3 more questions. Regarding the chairman's unethical behavior before, I'm reading the questions. During and after the May.
This is your comment? Or is this a question?
This is a question.
Okay. All right.
Regarding the chairman's unethical behavior before, during, and after the May 7th, 2024 hearing. First, the chairman discouraged a board member from joining the meeting remotely. When asked by member King, with me, okay, what did you say to the out-of-town board member? The chairman responded, I think I said something, you don't want any part of this. Is it proper for the chairman of any board to exhibit this type of behavior? That was that
Can we
question,
address that?
if you like.
Okay. I supplied those text messages. I said the text message member Jeffries was texting me about something. I made that comment. He responded with a bourbon drink. Member Jeffries could have called in at any time he wanted to any one of the board members or the Alexandra or the executive director, anybody. I did not discourage him at all. He
John,
could call in and meeting anytime he wanted to.
John, let me interject. The bourbon drink has nothing to do.
It does. It has everything to do with his mindset at the time.
I'm not talking about his mindset.
It should.
I'm talking.
But you didn't tell him to come in.
I'm talking about your mindset. And I'm gonna.
It was an offhanded comment.
Sure, I know. Let me do this. Let me do this,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jeffries could have attended that meeting at any time he wanted to.
Let me do this. Hopefully, calm everybody down. I drove up here, chomping at the bit to ask you to resign. I've already done that. I'm not going to do that. I agree. We need to move forward. But I would ask you again, as a leader of an organization, if to me that was very dismissive of our case. You don't want to have anything to do with this. I interpreted this as a hot mess. You don't want to have anything to do with it. Can you understand that?
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
I absolutely understand your
okay. So if you had to do that again, would you think it might have been more appropriate you to say, I'm the leader, the one with integrity, responsibility. Let's pause this meeting, as you did today many times, to get people to join very generously, right? Would it have been better to say, let's pause this meeting. We got member Jeffries. He's out of town.
What?
They want you to slow it down.
Well, we got a timeline.
I know.
Slow down a little bit.
He's confused with the times, all this. Let's give him 3 minutes to try to join. Would you agree that would have been a better way for you to handle that?
Well, today I would not even text message with other members. So I
answer the question straightforward.
It was an offhanded comment that was made back then.
Okay.
Would I make that comment today? No.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But it wasn't meant to discourage him from being there.
Enough said. That was dismissive, and I'm glad that you reflect and think you wouldn't do it again. Thank you.
All right. Do it again.
I want to get clarity on this because I was very familiar with this story that he was texting another board member who was supposed to join remotely and told him, when he said, should I join now? And he says, you don't want any part of this, that so forth and so on. And there's more to this story than what Fervier or Rossi is really saying here. And Rossi's
vote, right?
It was to sabotage a vote is what I'm told. And I'll get more sauce on that for tomorrow night on why we vote.
Anyway, the chairman was involved in or allowed for a pre-negotiated settlement to be reached with Fulton County prior to the May 7th, 2024 hearing. When asked by Director Mills, were you aware or did you know that Lindsay was carrying on the conversation with Fulton County? The chairman responded, I don't recall exactly what my knowledge was at the time. So the question is, what did the chairman know about the Lindsay negotiation, and when did he know it?
Member King, can I defend the chairman on this one?
Boy, this is going to be a new one. Somebody record this.
So I've been in contact with member Lindsay. And did you see his email?
I did.
Okay.
He copied the whole board on it.
Yeah, he copied the whole board.
Yep.
So I was concerned that you were either in cahoots with member Lindsay or at least knew about it. And member Lindsay confirmed via email last night that he did that all on his own without the chairman's knowledge. So I retract my false accusation, sir.
Can we take back the unethical part?
Take it.
All right, we're
absolutely.
But I do have one more for you, John.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's keep going.
All right. The chairman altered the Lindsay resolution document that changed a critical deadline for Fulton from July to August behind the back of the board. The chairman was asked by me, member King, who changed the letter. The chairman's initial response was, I signed the letter. The letter was prepared by Alexandra Harden. The question is it permissible for this chairman to alter a resolution document behind the back of the board?
Oh, that was, I admitted last time that I changed that date. I told you why I changed the date. Member Lindsay addressed that also in his response.
And he said he didn't recall whether he talked to you about it.
He didn't recall whether he did or not. And
Right.
I don't recall exactly the conversation if there was one. I admitted that. And I told you I changed the date. And my reasoning was to give this board more time to consider proposals that came up. So,
Yeah.
which member Lindsay was fully in support of in his comments.
And I think I understand why you were doing it. But again, as a leader with integrity, I think it would have been better versus you doing that on your own to come back to the board, say, board, we're not going to meet this deadline. Do y'all agree? Can we do a motion to change the date? And either the board would have said, no, July's the date, and then it would have been rescinded, or they may have said, yeah, let's give them another month. So again, I'm just saying there's certain things in hindsight that clearly could have been handled differently.
All right.
Move on.
Last question.
No, I don't even know we need to go to this one, Janelle.
Don't do that
Do
one.
we need to do this?
Is it?
I want to know what this question
I'm
was
going to
so
get
bad.
that question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get that question.
No.
I'm going to get, in fact, I'll work on it right now.
Is this going to be?
No, this is almost like social media stuff. We have too much serious stuff to talk about. Let's pass on that one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's all the questions.
Okay. So, to be honest, driving up here, I got some recent information yesterday, and I really thought, this information is devastating for Fulton County. And this is beyond, the chairman maybe did this differently and would have done it this way. And to be honest, we need you, Chairman Ferbier, to help us going forward to get to the truth.
Not according to Mr. Schroeder.
No, maybe we'll calm him down after this. But, all right, Sean.
He doesn't get to be a
Send this
victim.
out first. I have a copy of this document, and Sean, you've got it up there. It might be a little hard to read. So I want to read it together because I've only had this for like.
All right. The moment has come that we're going to get into this. And this is pretty big. I hope I don't oversell it. Let me slow it down. This is so big. This is so big.
12 hours, but I've been aware of it for probably 2 months.
Thank you.
Okay. And if Mr. Mills, if your blood wasn't fuming about Fulton County, you're gonna find this very concerning. Okay. So if you look up there, Fulton County election officials knew that the hand count audit results were falsely inflated. Okay. Let me say that again. And it happens to be that they knew that on November 19th of 2020. Fulton County election officials knew that the hand count audit results were falsely inflated. Now, before you read on too much further, keep in mind that them not owning up to this led to a tremendous amount of work and wasted time. The governor's team had 5 or 6 people on it for 3 months. I spent a lot of time on it. This board spent a lot of time on it. And on November 19th, there was an email sent from Michael Pendergast. Some people in here may know who that is, but it's my understanding he's part of that election group. And he sent the email to Miss Nadine Williams, who I think was the assistant election director at the time, deputy election director, and Richard Barron, who was the election director. And basically in that email, carries an attachment. I'm going to go through that attachment in a few minutes. You're going to be amazed at how much this matches my report and the governor's report. Could have saved a lot of time. Most of which are the same errors discovered by Mr. Rossi and by the governor, who referred the case to the state election board.
So we'll pause it there for a second before we get into the actual specifics.
We have 7 minutes until the hearing.
We have 10 minutes until the hearing.
It's 1:53.
And I'm monitoring it. We'll go there.
Okay.
They knew. Fulton County knew in November of 2020, November 19th, 16 days after the election, they knew that there was massive discrepancies between the hand count or the machine count and the hand count and so forth and so on. They gaslit the American public the entire time that the hand counts aligned, everything matches up, everything checks out. Even if the unsigned tabulator tapes, the 315,000 unsigned tabulator tapes, even if that was a discrepancy, we still did 3 counts to make sure that all the numbers match. Only they didn't match. And they knew that they didn't match. And they had to add votes in order to get them to match. This led to indictments. This disrupted a Senate runoff, which was the literal control of our country.
They held the runoff anyway, using the same system, knowing they had a massive problem with the prior election. And they told everybody it was fine.
January 5th, 2021, elected the 2 Democrat senators in Georgia that swayed control of the United States Senate and gave Joe Biden a trifecta in government.
Yeah.
And they knew that it was a problem. January 6th happened because people knew that there was something off. And Fulton County knew, and they gaslit everybody. They bald-faced lied.
So Georgia investigatory officials can have absolutely nothing to do with what comes next, because the state of Georgia, the whole of government has to come together to cover up this thing. And they did. We saw them. Where's Gabe Sterling? Where's Raffensperger? Where's Kemp? They were on one side of this thing. January, what day was it with the call? January 2nd.
Or 2nd, yeah.
January 2nd. President Trump says, hey, there's some issues there in Georgia. What did they do? They said he was trying to rig an election. Find me 11,000 votes, they said, and made it look as though President Trump was trying to overturn the outcome of an election when he was actually asking legitimate questions about their cover-up. Bipartisan effort. The state of Georgia has violated the nation.
Yes.
With what they did.
Yes. Fulton County has violated the nation with what they did. Correct. Michael Pendergrast, Nadine Williams, Richard Barron, these people, this is, I don't know how you don't look at this as treason or seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government. I don't know how you get around this. Nobody.
You know what's weird, Brian, is that it seems like as soon as we started talking about this bombshell part, we got a bunch of doomy bots come in.
Did we?
Well, just a bunch of doomers. Maybe they're not bots.
Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been arrested. This is the first time anybody's heard this. This is well, other than yesterday when Mr. Rossi broke it.
Yep.
I told you guys I'm extremely familiar with this case, and I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, let's keep going.
Case 2021-181 confirmed that 6,691 fictitious votes were added, in fact, added to the hand count audit results, but were never corrected. I want to backtrack for a second to the governor's letter. In the governor's letter, he stated at the end, he wanted the state election board to act swiftly on this case because they vetted it and they knew it was factual. That was the third item he requested. The second item he requested, which never happened, was, I'll read it to you because I don't want to misquote the governor. He said, number 2, determine whether any changes should be made to the RLA report. If so, the board should determine whether such changes adversely impact the integrity of the RLA report as originally reported or posted on the Secretary of State's website. So the governor himself personally asked that if that report that has been posted on the Secretary of State's website is flawed, off by thousands of votes, he asked for it to be corrected. And that was never done. Never done by this board, never done by the AG's office, never done by the Secretary of State. And I mentioned that because that was a direct request from the governor. Okay, let me keep moving on. Okay, this is the email written down there, but what's more, the email speaks for itself. He's basically pointing out on November 19th, 2020, and ironically, that's the day that Secretary of State Raffensperger, I believe, went out and publicly announced that the hand audit verified the election results. And also subsequent to that, we had Mr. Sterling say multiple times publicly that we know with 100% certainty. I got the emails here if anybody wants to see them. I'm not going to belabor that. We said we know with 100% certainty that the hand audit was accurate and did not double count ballots. He said that. I got 5 emails from Sterling saying the same thing. So Fulton County knew about this. All right, let's go to the numbers and then I got a question. So go to the last page. You're going to be amazed by this. So this Mr. Pendergast, he didn't have the report as long as we did, but he found 13 errors. We found 36 errors. So this morning on the drive up here, I went and matched the governor's errors, which equaled my errors, to this Mr. Pendergast errors. So for example, the governor and Mr. Rossi error was number 2. You see that on the first line up there. Scanner 1, batch 18, Trump had 26 votes. Biden had 72 votes. That was a duplicated count. Error number 3, Scanner 1, 25, matched exactly what we had, the governor's team and myself, and Mr. James, 21 and 71, and so on and so forth. Go down to the last one, error number 33 from the governor's report and my report, 37 votes for Trump, and I can't read my writing. Looks like 178 votes for Biden. So just the one with the dash on it, just so you know, that's one I didn't have. So maybe there were 37. I must have missed one. I got 36, but apparently he found one that I didn't have, the one that says 3 and 92. If you add those up, and then again, this is for only maybe 25% of what the governor's team reported and what our team reported. He added this individual had 1,316 duplicated Biden votes and 339 duplicated Trump votes. So what is that? Almost
239 or 339?
Is it 2 or 3?
2.
Your handwriting.
Yeah, it's 239. I didn't have my glasses on. 239 to 1,316. So approximately 16, in their 13 errors, they found 1,600 duplicate counted votes. When we added it all up, I think it was over 6,000. So again, the point being made is that Fulton County knew.
Yep.
Well, you know, the question is who knew and when did they know it? Fulton County knew, and they knew on November 19th, 2020. And they allowed the Secretary of State, or maybe they told the Secretary of State or Mr. Sterling. And again, I'm speculating, but they may have said, just move on. It's accurate. But they knew, and people went out and touted how accurate this was. People were indicted for questioning it. I spent countless hours on it. The governor's team spent 3 months on it. And to be honest, they were not happy they were having to do this, but they did it, and I applaud him for that. So my request to the board, the United Board, from Ms. Gazal to Member King, is I would like this board, and I heard the chairman say, I didn't know this, but you said something today that rung in my head. You said the SEB can file a complaint. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good news, because I'm going to ask you to file a complaint against Fulton County immediately and get to the bottom of what they knew and when they knew it. Did they tell the Secretary of State? Did they not tell the Secretary of State? Did they ignore this on their own and continue to allow people to tout that it was accurate when they knew it wasn't accurate? It's just unethical. And it's something that is embarrassing for the state of Georgia. It's embarrassing for Fulton County. It's embarrassing for the Secretary of State's office, because even when these errors were pointed out to the Secretary of State's office, they continued, Mr. Raffensperger and Mr. Sterling continued to deny them. You know when they quit denying them? Who knows when they quit denying these errors?
When the governor said
November 17th, 2022. What happened on that date? The governor's letter came out.
governor sent the letter.
So up until November 17th of 2021. So they went a whole year touting how accurate this was. And they finally said, Uncle, we can't say this was accurate anymore. In my opinion, that was the time they went into cover-up mode. So again, my request of this board is to get an immediate complaint. And I'm going to ask you, please don't use Ms. McGowan in the Secretary of State's office to investigate this.
Don't use Georgia
Please
at all.
Use that how much was it, James? $1.3 million. Use that to hire somebody that is independent to go do this and get on it immediately. I think you will gain back a lot of respect from the citizens of Georgia. I think the board will gain a lot of credibility back.
No, they won't.
And I think you can help the Department of Justice get to the bottom of all this, which is important that we do so.
All right, let's pause that there because they've started the hearing, but it doesn't have any like they've started the stream, but it's not live into it yet. So we'll monitor that, the ethics hearing. And in that ethics hearing, 2 of the board members, Dr. Johnson, who has been the rock on the state election board through all of this, she has been the anchor that's held this down and pushed this through.
And it's a new board. Right. That's important for people to understand, is that there's new people on this board.
And then the other member, that's the new one. Dr. Johnson's been there for a while now. And Janelle King is fairly new as well. I think she's like coming up on a year now, I believe. I did find out the question.
Oh, what was it?
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
From an anonymous source. The question was, following the meeting, July 9th, 2024, that's the one with where the guy didn't show up, a bottle of vodka was sent to the chair. I don't know who sent it or why they sent it, but it came from the Secretary of State's office, which raises more questions. Why is a bottle of vodka being given to the chair following a difficult and contentious meeting? Who sent the bottle of vodka to the chairman and for what reason?
Oh, interesting.
And I know who sent the bottle.
Damn it, Joe Rossi. How dare you rob us of that moment? Just kidding.
It is kind of social media, but it's congratulatory at the very least. Sounds congratulatory.
So how can we, Brian, trust any investigation about this done by any authority, current authority in Georgia, when all of the authorities in Georgia, with the exception of the state election board, all of the authorities in Georgia have been obstructing justice on this issue since 2020? That's the key question for me. And like you said, it's not just the 2020 election and the presidency. It's everything down ballot. Remember Michelle Long Spears in DeKalb. I know that was 2022, but it's just the same. They're still using, they denied this happened and obstructed justice to it. So they've continued to use this election system since 2020. It's 2026, by the way, since 2020. And now we're now we get it and we're going to investigate. What say you?
That you can't, it's impossible.
Right.
It is impossible. So here's the thing. And this is one of the reasons, Ash, why I gave Stephen Richer a lot of props for coming on Why We Vote, because he answered the tough questions. He didn't answer them to our satisfaction. And in the ultimate, turnout, he has to come back because he has to be more prepared, because he didn't expect us to know this, this type of.
Do you think he's going to come back?
Yeah, I think he will.
Have you invited him back?
Not yet. I haven't. Not yet. But now that this is developed, I definitely will. I did post this and ask, for his take on the other thing, but you can't, because there is no yin to the yang. So McGowan, the general counsel for the Secretary of State, got to go up there in the state election board for 2 hours. And I was screaming at the stream, like, this is wrong. This is wrong. I was talking to people. They afforded the complainants no opportunity to rebut the Secretary of State's excuses. And that's what they were. They were excuses. They weren't answers. They weren't facts. They weren't justifications. They were excuses. And so as long as we have a situation here where elected officials and bureaucrats are able to take, legitimate information and just regurgitate, some brain dead talking point that the media sops up and says, look, the Secretary of State, the trusted authority, the trusted source on information regarding elections, right? The Matt Cranes of Colorado, the Jenna Griswolds of Colorado, these people, as long as they're given a platform and stuff like this doesn't get out, we're doomed. And we're doomed because it is. And I don't know if you listened yet, Ash, to that James Collier interview that Mark Cook posted.
I got through about an hour and a half.
It's the media. He knew it back in the 90s. The media is the one that promulgates everything. They have more influence than any of these elected officials. What's that?
The media is the CIA. The messages being propagated through the media are the CIA. So, it's still the same. Remember who the real enemy is. And we're still there. Is the hearing going on yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I've got it loud, so you guys will hear it when it pops up.
Okay, cool.
I'll put it.
So President Trump is posting some stuff on election fraud. One of our our mutual friends sent me a message to him sharing stuff about Fulton County and the no tabulator tapes. Remember, this Fulton County issue is not isolated. It's not in a vacuum. The election issues with Fulton County run the gambit of fake voters, fake ballots, fake counts. And as Joe Rossi said in that, I hope we get to have it all come out, hear all about it.
Well, this is
that cannot be the decision of Fulton County. Cannot be the decision of Fulton County as to whether or not we get justice for what happened in Fulton County. It in my opinion, cannot be the decision of Georgia, because Georgia, through the obstruction of the past 6 years, has proven that it cannot govern itself as a ethical and moral upstanding member of the union.
Georgia, I don't think Georgia's going to have anything to do with this investigation anymore. I think this is going to be
the target.
This is going to be completely taken over by the DOJ. Thankfully, to be fair, thankfully this is happening under the Trump DOJ rather than the Biden DOJ, because, with Jack Smith running his prosecutions, his weaponized prosecutions against political opponents, against Donald Trump, against the indicted in Georgia. I mean, Harrison Floyd, Kathy Latham, Mike Roman, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, all of these people, Travion Cuddy, all of these people are vindicated with this. They're vindicated.
Yeah.
Absolutely and thoroughly. There was a criminal conspiracy to keep this information from the public, and they turned around and used that as justification to indict a former and frontrunner for the presidency of the United States.
Yeah.
Think about that. And
so
they never once, Ash, they never once were like, hey, some of this is actually true.
Yeah. I mean, so here's my dare to believe in the plan moment, right? Because yesterday, President Trump said to the world, people are going to be prosecuted for a 2020 election fraud soon. Today, we see in Georgia, there is absolutely cause for that to happen, and people should be outraged if it doesn't. But at the same time, Brian, Jack Smith was before Congress today, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And I was watching this, so I didn't have a chance to consume all of that yet. I saw a little bit of it on, saw that John was covering it on his show, but haven't had a chance to watch John's show today either. And so I don't know, did you have a chance to see any of that?
No, I've been watching this all day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, hell of a coincidence, hell of a scheduling coincidence that we have the chairman of the SEB effectively admitting to obstruction, and the proof that Fulton County knew November 19th, 2020 at the latest, knew that they had a real problem with their results. They didn't match. There was no way to make them match. They all engaged in a massive cover-up to prevent the public from learning about that. And then, as Brian said, they turned around and used it to go after sitting president, or to go after former president. So at the same day that Fulton, this is like definitively in the record as Fulton County, the guy who took the ball and ran with it to prosecute the former president is also before Congress. Interesting timing.
Let me see if I can find real quick.
Oh, you look frozen to me.
I am frozen.
And you look really mad at me while you're frozen. You're like, just stop talking. I thought you were actually making that face the whole time. I didn't realize.
No, that's my resting bitch face.
That is your resting bitch face. That's a good one.
Hold on one second. I have not seen it. Hey, the bearded dude from the thing got arrested from the church thing. William Kelly arrested after storming church and challenging Bondi to come and get me, you effing traitorous bitch.
Was it the Don Lemon thing?
Yeah.
Did he get arrested?
Not yet.
Is he above the law?
Magistrate judge refuses to sign complaint, bringing charges against Don Lemon. Magistrate's wife.
Get that judge out of there.
Magistrate's wife works in Keith Ellison's office. Oh, the corruption.
Rip it all out.
I want to see.
Wasn't it Ilhan Omar, I think, ironically, who said you have to rip corruption out by the root? When
I
it's
think
been
so.
corrupted down to the root, you have to rip it out by the root. That's Ellen Omar, who's, in my understanding, currently being investigated for public corruption.
I'm trying to find my story. I wrote a story, and let me see. Here it is. I wrote this story back in 2023, and it was a part 3 of a 3-part series, but I'll just show you real quick. Fannie Willis has a problem. She's investigating the wrong people. And I think I even said she's investigating the wrong RICO in one of the other parts of it. I can't find it, but this is, you know, the writing I did back then was all about this case specifically. And to, you know, for those that might not be familiar with this case that this hearing was about, this is just the tip of the iceberg on that. It is again, I'll emphasize this again. It's the low hanging fruit. There's, I think there's 17,000 ballots that come from 10 tabulators that have zero record of existing. They don't exist. The serial numbers are not in Fulton County's possession. They're remote, or they're ghosts. They're phantom machines. I think they're remote machines that somebody used to tabulate votes to fill in numbers. You know, we're still talking about, and also the numbers that Rossi found there are only numbers out of 147,000 mail-in ballots, and only in Fulton County. When you look at why Fulton County was short, you know, some 6,700 ballots, 6,900 ballots. Floyd County was off by 3,500 ballots. Why were they off? Right. Spalding was off. DeKalb was off. Like, there were counties all over Georgia that found thousands of ballots during the hand count in November 16th. That, we believe, was attributed to the QR code signature mismatch error, which was found up in Tennessee. And they found on the slog files, they found a specific line of code that was showing a rejection and causing the system to do something very weird. And that kind of plays it. I'm still monitoring that, by the way. That kind of plays.
They're talking about aging.
Oh, why did it stop playing? Okay.
And they're talking about the Council of Aging right now.
Oh, they're still waiting. Yeah, so that QR code signature mismatch, what it would do is you would scan a ballot and just randomly, they don't know why, and this is admitted to, by the way, by the EAC and Dominion, it would randomly flag a ballot, mark that ballot as provisional, put it in a separate folder that's unknown, and then the ballots after that, following that ballot, would also get put in that folder.
They're talking now.
Are they about that, though? They're talking about, like, health.
Where are you? What do you have up? Because I have the ethics committee up. Yeah.
Certainly don't think that's my personality. Maybe I'm wrong, but I certainly, that wouldn't be my intention. But I do think that the citizens of Georgia, since they started questioning elections, which I do want to point out was prior to 2020, I believe the first major contentions were probably in 2016 or right thereafter, where our election processes were being.
Can you make it any louder?
Felt that it was imperative that we get ahead of the curve. Yesterday evening, late yesterday afternoon, I received correspondence that stated that the second stone pending litigation, and I do want to say that I was a little confused. And I do want to say that
you just made it no sound.
And multiple interviews with media. And so with that being said, I think that my colleagues
you have sound now?
Committee from both parties can read the
resolution.
Trying to make it
louder, but I can't.
And
they say they can hear fine, so we're good.
Without the Secretary of State's office here to explain their part as to where they feel that this resolution should be voted on today and moved out of this committee. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Whip. And just to echo that, yes, we did invite the Secretary of State to be here on Friday. And they let us know last night that they would not be here, just to make that
shocker
as well. But at this time, I'll be glad to open up any questions to the author of this resolution, if there are any.
So after that bombshell drops, the Secretary of State says, we can't make it.
Nothing to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Whip. Just one quick question. So my understanding is that what is being asked of the Secretary of State in terms of records to turn over to this party, that it's actually a violation of state law. And so I would just like some clarification on understanding why we are asking our Secretary of State to violate state law by handing over really private data that we can ensure will be protected. Why are we asking him to violate state law?
Well, I'll answer your question, Madam Whip, from the back to the front. This sensitive data is already passed back through other places. Equifax, everybody else has all of this sensitive data that he appears to be concerned about. And I also believe that there are federal laws that supersede Georgia law under the Supremacy Clause. And so, and I'm sure you understand that no local government can pass a law that is in violation of state law, as in no state can pass a law that is in violation of federal law as interpreted under the Supremacy Clause. So that would probably be a question. But while I would like to go in depth in an answer, and I think I heard you say it prior to that, not having the Secretary of State's office here, their attorneys or whatever, who always have the opportunity to answer with, this is currently under litigation and we do not feel comfortable with answering that question. They have chose not to come in here and answer the question. And while I've known, I knew the Secretary of State well before he was Secretary of State, back when he was serving in the House, and he and I have never had, to my knowledge, a crossword or any issues beyond some of our differences in issues related to election management and things of that nature. So just a little perplexed again by the choice of not coming before a committee of duly elected senators and just answering questions, and with the questions that he may not be comfortable with answering, that he would have the opportunity to articulate as to why he was not comfortable with answering. But I do believe that there is a conflict between the state law and the federal law. And I do believe some of the other contentions that he has made, such as third-party vendors, are extremely vague. And we would have the opportunity to ask those questions because my understanding of who that third-party vendor would be might be different from his understanding of who that third-party vendor is.
May I follow up? So thank you for that, Mr. Whip. I do want to be clear, though. I'm asking you as the author of the resolution. So for some answers, I understand your frustration about the Secretary of State not being here, but I'd like to know from you as the author of this resolution. Are you aware that this stands in contradictory to Georgia laws? And also, are you aware that federal courts, there are two, have already determined that the DOJ does not have the jurisdiction, the authority to request this type of information from states? Are you aware of that?
That has not been determined in Georgia. In the states you're referencing, not all the laws are the same. And again, I would direct you to the Supremacy Clause, and I'm sure you probably
But these are federal courts.
I understand that, but it was not this particular lawsuit, correct? Do you know which districts those were in?
Yes, I do. So
were they in the district here in Georgia?
No.
Okay. I think what you have to realize is the Ninth Circuit can come out with one thing, and there's still cases to be heard in other circuits. And so it doesn't necessarily apply throughout, based on the way the lawsuits are filed. Several states, Tennessee being one, I believe Mississippi, I don't want to misguide you, but I think possibly Louisiana have already complied once they sat down with the Department of Justice and worked out the details. And what I have read in the written information provided by the Secretary of State's office, that as much effort has not been carried out on the Georgia side. The primary concern of mine is that we are not fully engaging to do this. What we are doing is we are spending taxpayers' resources to fight something that we have not sat down and fully vetted out with the Department of Justice is my concern.
Just one follow-up question. I'm deeply concerned that we are going to spend taxpayer dollars, a lot of them, millions of dollars, if we were to send this data information over, and then also compromise the privacy data of our Georgia citizens. So it will both cost a lot of money to send that information, and I believe that it will jeopardize. I don't know if you've ever been a victim of identity theft, but I have. I'm deeply concerned about the privacy data and not being stored properly. And the last thing I'll say, if you don't mind, the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, I'll just answer the one thing you brought up was concerned about the storage of the information. Are you aware of how the information would be stored?
That's there. I think there are a lot of questions around how that information will be stored and whether or not it will be private. So I'm concerned about that. Yeah. And then the last thing I will say is that I think that constitutionally, so not talking about the Georgia Constitution, but constitutionally, our founders granted authority over elections to states. That was given to us, to states and to Congress. And so, again, I'm concerned that you are asking us to tell the Secretary of State to violate the Constitution of the United States, not Georgia law, not just Georgia law, but also the Constitution of the United States. So I'm having a hard time understanding why you want us to pass a resolution that fundamentally violates the Constitution of the United States.
There are 3 federal laws passed by the United States Congress that allows this. I would encourage you to look at those, and they're mentioned in the resolution, that if you look at those, there would be. And the Department of Justice deals with an incredibly amount of sensitive information day in and day out. There's a system established to do that. And the information that they're asking for is passed through those systems day in and day out, whether it's the IRS, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and others. And that system has been proven over and over and over to be safe. There are many more state, local, and county systems of information that have been breached than the system used by the Department of Justice. And the systems I'm talking about that have been breached are here in the state of Georgia.
Well, maybe just to add a little bit to that and maybe help out. In my opinion, going back and looking at OCGA 21-225, we do have provisions within Georgia law that do require, as long as there are some exceptions that are in code, there's that however part that we put those things in there that actually do provide an opportunity and ability for the Secretary of State to provide private confidential information to the federal government, to other people, as long as they meet certain circumstances and things within the Georgia law. So in Georgia law, there is a way to do that. And on the third party part, I know that's been mentioned as well. And I know we've got some folks from the SCB here as well, but it's my understanding that the Secretary of State also already works with other third parties, and I'm assuming that they meet certain criteria that we have outlined in law in that part of the code section as well. So,
Mr. Chair, if I might, the code you're referring to that does allow the sharing of that information, I think, is under Title 21, 21-2-225.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, got started a few more questions here. Number 6. Who's number 6?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I too want to share my concern that we are with this resolution asking the Secretary of State to violate Georgia law. We sent up a prayer, a heartfelt prayer, as we opened this meeting to guide us in upholding the laws of Georgia. We all bowed our heads and prayed for that guidance to do that. And this flies in the face of that. We would definitely want to have legal opinion from our counsel. Do we have a lawyer for the committee that can offer us legal opinion?
We do. Stuart, do you mind?
So I think an answer to the question as to whether or not the secretary is empowered under OCGA 21.2.225. It's going to be a very fact specific analysis, and I'm not completely familiar with the exact nature of the Department of Justice's request for the information, but 21.2.225 does outline certain conditions where the Secretary of State is authorized to share the otherwise confidential information from the voter roll, the election roll, electoral rolls to other states, so that that's kind of the whole point of allowing for the electronic voting system, is to allow for electronic voter rolls, is to allow the states to be able to quickly compare their voter rolls with each other. That code section does appear to also apply to aspects of the federal government. So again, that it's just going to be a very factual specific determination as to whether that code section applies. And I'm just not familiar enough with the exact request from the Department of Justice to give a firm opinion on the matter.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I think that in and of itself would be a precautionary advice to us to not be precipitous in moving forward, where the legal aspects of this have not been vetted, and Republicans as well as Democrats have strenuously fought to protect citizens' privacy rights from federal government intrusion and overreach. So why wouldn't we lay this on the table until there is?
They give the same information to League of Women Voters and stuff, don't they?
That we can have confidence in before going forward.
Let's see. We got one or
Yes,
two more here.
and
Let's
Eric
try to clear it
and
up
other
if we can.
nonprofits.
Number 13, Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, is it not true that Georgia participates in ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information System Center?
I am.
And is it
prophetic.
not true that
Nice
that center
foreshadowing.
collects information from Georgia on motor vehicle records, Social Security death rates, UPS addresses, in order to identify duplicate voters? Is that not true, Mr.
It is.
Author? And is it also not true that the Secretary of State engages in bilateral agreements to share information with other states? Is that not true?
That is true and required under Georgia law.
And required under Georgia law. So there is no difference in sharing this data with ERIC or with other states in complying with the Department of Justice request. I thank the author for his resolution.
Thank you, sir.
Boom. Mic drop.
Number 14. Mr. Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that at the appropriate time do pass SR 563 LC 473808.
All right, we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? A second. Marty. All right, we do have a few more questions here, so we're just roll right into discussion. Let's go to number 3. Later.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the concerns I think was also about the information being used by an outside party for other reasons other than voting reasons. Or what do you kind of respond to that this could be used by other parties outside of just voting reasons?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I
Like
appreciate
ICE.
that question. Under discussion, when I read through everything that was supplied by the Secretary of State to the DOJ, I just received all of this stuff yesterday, and I think when the resolution was dropped, I read through it and it mentioned third-party vendor, and as I tried to mine through and look who that third-party vendor might be, the only thing I could find is the JEF system. It's an electronic judicial filing system used by the Department of Justice to manage information received from like the IRS, FBI, and other federal agencies that also include sensitive information. And so drilling down into what third-party vendors were, I think the chairman said it a few minutes ago, is that we engage with a lot of third-party vendors. And based on the RFPs, which include security and other things required for that, I can only assume, but since the Secretary of State's office is not here, is that is possibly what they are talking about when they say third-party vendor. And that is a robust system that anybody in the state of Georgia that files taxes, there's a very, very good chance that your information is in the JEF system. So that's as good as a response as I can give you, sir.
If I could have a couple of follow-ups, Mr. Chair. One of those on that particular issue, as far as the Jeff system is concerned, in that memorandum of understanding that the administration sent to the different states, it talks about the Jeff system, but it doesn't actually say who would be an authorized user. It doesn't give any limitations at all about who actually could possibly use it. It does say it'll go through Jeff's, but it doesn't like say who it would be limited to. Could that possibly be one of the reasons that our secretary is having issues with this?
Again, Mr. Leader, without the Secretary of State's office being here, I can't intelligently answer that. What I can do is compare it to something that you and I are both familiar with, which is GCIC and NCIC, where sensitive information is stored. And while you and I may have access to the system, there are guards in the way as to when and why you and I would ever access that system, which because of criminal information, there has to be a reason to go in there. You and I could not go in there just out of curiosity and to search names and dates of birth and other things. And with a system that is trusted by the federal government for as long as it's been in place as the Jeff system, I would feel confident that that system would be secure. I could find no areas where there have been breaches. Now, that's not to say there wouldn't be an Aldrich Ames or something like that, somebody within the federal government or any other government who may want to do something sinister. But for what we're talking about with the information that is sensitive as we like to claim it is out there everywhere. Because when I pay my cable bill, if I have to talk to anybody on the phone, if my internet's out, then I'm speaking to somebody who is not located in the United States of America, and I'm giving them the last four of my social security number to verify who I am. And so I think while we like to talk about this information being the most hypersensitive information in the world, it's really not, which is why most credit card companies and others use different information now to prevent ID theft.
And Mr. Chair, I actually have two questions, if I may, please. Does it give you any pause, though, that in the case that you were referencing, the California case, it actually is specifically stated by the Department of Justice that Department of Homeland Security is actually going to be using this information for their own database as far as determining a person's status within the country?
Well, I think when we say Department of Homeland Security, I think there could possibly be individuals within the Department of Homeland Security who actually have the clearance to be in the Jeff system. But again, they are held under federal regulations and federal law if they were to misuse the Jeff system. And again, it would be the same type of protocol if you and I were to use NCIC or GCIC, that we couldn't go in there on a fishing trip and run around. What we would have to be looking at is a specific individual or specific crime in a specific area where this information is pertinent to that.
And my second follow-up on that is that, is it not accurate that the Department of Justice says one of the reasons that it's seeking this information is to comply with the 1960 Civil Rights Act, that they're actually trying to use the 1960 Civil Rights Act to basically justify getting this information and comply with the NVRA and the HVA?
They're actually using three individual federal laws, and one of those is exactly as you stated. Yes, sir.
But of course, if it is the 1960 Civil Rights Act, it would be interesting to note that they're using that tool to justify using this when the NVRA and the HVA were not passed for almost 30 years after the 1960 Civil Rights Act. So the 1960 Civil Rights Act could never contemplate being used in this manner because these other statutes did not exist.
Mr. Leader, I do agree with some of the things you're saying, and it's sad that the Secretary of State's office chose not to participate in this conversation to clear those up for us.
All right, last one. We're going to vote.
I had my light on.
All right, go ahead. Last one.
I'd like for us to pause and think about the ramifications if we were to pass this information as a state over to the Department of Justice, and then the courts then later proceed to examine this and rule on it. And if the courts ruled that the Secretary of State of Georgia was not compelled by law to share this information, the sensitive personal information about each and every person who is registered in the state of Georgia, once that information is released to the Department of Justice, no matter what courts might rule, you can never pull back that information. It's like putting toothpaste back in a tube. It's like putting the genie back in the bottle. So for us as a committee of the Senate to take a vote today, when our own attorney has said there would be the need for deeper, more factual information in order to give us a solid advice that we could rely on, why would we rush to pass this resolution? It's just precipitous. And our Secretary of State has been in charge of the voting for 8 years, 2 terms, elected statewide by voters across the state of Georgia, is charged with securing this information and appropriately storing it and appropriately sharing or not sharing it. Why would we put our judgment, none of us are election lawyers here, and the lawyer that has spoken on the record that is assigned to advise us has said that he cannot give us full advice on this in this present moment without further exploration. So I think that is absolutely grounds for us to take a pause, consider public hearings, consider approaching this in a much more legally sound way rather than to take a late afternoon vote with a resolution that we've seen for the first time when we have our own committee lawyer saying he cannot fully advise us. Why would we rush to do this, given that we can never pull that information back once it's sent up there? Even if all the courts in the land ruled he shouldn't have done it, it'll be too late, won't it, Mr. Whip?
Senator Orrock, this is a resolution.
Uh-huh.
You do understand, and I believe you do understand that this resolution urges the Secretary of State to participate in the Department of Justice investigation fully. That's exactly what it does. When this resolution passes out of here today, does not mean that people with moving trucks and cardboard boxes are going to back up to the Secretary of State's office and start loading up voter records. While I agree with you that we must be cautious, and I think we have, the parts we're missing is not the part of our attorney who is a very well-read attorney coming up here saying, if you read the law on the cover, the law says exactly what I says it says. But that's exactly right. Based on the way it is written, it says that they must be shared with states, territories of the United States, and federal agencies within the United States.
Under certain conditions.
That's exactly what it
Under
says.
certain conditions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So understand that. What we were doing is encouraging the Secretary of State to participate. And while I have no personal gripe with the Secretary of State, he continuously fails to show up and answer the questions. And that is the absolute truth. And members that have sat on this committee have witnessed it more than once. And so he has been given the opportunity, and we gave him another opportunity today, and he failed.
Yes, I'll take that. We've had enough discussion here. We need to vote on this resolution and move on down the road. We do have some other speakers that are here to join us and have made an effort to get here. So I want to move on to them and give them opportunity. So all those in favor of SR 563, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right. The ayes have it. Mr. Whip, you have a resolution to move on down the road.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have 2 representatives from the State Election Board that could help even share some more light on our situation, and I want them to come on up. Dr. Janice Johnson, who's been on the State Election Board for quite some time, and the Senate's new appointee, Ms. Sally Grubbs, is joining us as well. And they both had a long 11-hour meeting yesterday, and I think they've been dealing with some of the same problems that the Department of Justice has been dealing with, possibly. Maybe they can tell us about it, but really just wanted y'all to come in here and try to, be as quick as you can as possible. I know you had an 11-hour meeting and it's hard to summarize that, but just kind of want to know how's it going and, what can we do to help, I guess. So floor is y'all's.
Well, thank you, senators, for having us here today. My name is Sally Grubbs, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. I believe I sent you all an email saying thank you for the opportunity to serve you and the people of Georgia, and so I'm honored to be here today. Would you like the recap of the State of the Union with the State Election Board, or would you like me to address the resolution first? Short version. I'll keep it. I'll kiss it. Senator Orrick, I wanted to just say that thank you for your passion and concern for the personal information. Ms. Gazal and I talked about it yesterday, and I certainly am not for, two wrongs don't make a right. I understand that. And I certainly don't want to give anyone a plethora of information for Georgia folks either. But the fact of the matter is this has been going on out of the Secretary of State's office for quite some time, and I don't recall anyone getting up in arms over it. When you look at the participation in ERIC and the information that is passed through to other organizations, and the fact that we now have the Garvis system for voter registration that is on a Salesforce platform that has been compromised before. When you have the previous breaches with Kennesaw State University in 2018, and I don't know that there was any a full investigation or uprising in the streets over that. And then if you look on the healthcare side, when House Bill 1013 was passed, and you look at the amount of information on Georgians' health that were dependent on services that went out into the ether of the internet world, and there have been compromises with third-party organizations like Centene Corporation that at that time helped administer healthcare things. I mean, I could give you a list. I've been paying attention for a long time. And so the issue of the resolution came up yesterday on the State Election Board. Dr. Johnston, and I'm not sure if she's the brainiac of all the words, but I did provide some copies to Senator Watson. But we found it necessary to take that action as well. And as a strict constitutionalist, I agree sharing information is not great. And I fully don't want the federal government in my business any more than is necessary. But in my view, it's become necessary due to the lack of action, due to the lack of maintaining voter rolls, due to the lack of administrative procedure on behalf of the Secretary of State, that we find ourselves in this situation. And like you, I feel like the State Election Board is the redheaded stepchild, because we find ourselves without a staff attorney at the meetings. We don't even have a parliamentarian at this point. We have asked for the Secretary of State's investigators to appear at the meetings, and yesterday was my first meeting, so Dr. Johnston surely has a lot more experience, but again, I've been paying attention. The investigators don't show up, and this will kind of lead into, yes, we had a resolution that we passed, and I feel I support your resolution and your efforts to have the Secretary respond accordingly. Yesterday, we had a very long agenda, and we were there at the beautiful Barrow County Historic Courthouse, and we were received very well. Our admin, Ms. Hope Cohen, did a great job, and our executive director, James Mills, did a great job. And despite what is out in the public, we're a very fully functioning board. I kind of felt like I was on a little retreat where we're in this nice Georgia town, and we had a great lunch with barbecue. I know that'll shock everyone. But the fact is, we went through 30 cases yesterday, and we have been going through cases. But as I found in going through the cases, I wanted to know, what is the procedure that the Secretary of State's investigators go through when they investigate a case? Because remember, as the State Election Board, we have 1.5 investigators on staff with the SEB. We are very limited in resources, and that's a situation for another day, I'm sure. But I kind of wanted to go through, what does an investigator do? Let me ask some questions. The one case, and I'm glad Miss Julie Allen is here today, the one case that we had where I had some questions for an investigator, but guess what? There were no investigators there to ask any questions of. And that was a situation at the High Museum of Art on voting, where some folks came up and they had kind of like a little festival going on, giving out food and drink. And the question is, you can't be any closer than 150 feet to the door. And the estimation was that it was about 25 feet or so. Dr. Johnston can elaborate on that. However, my question was, did the investigator go out with a tape measure and pull a tape and just see how far away from the door these people were? No investigator in the room can't ask the question. In fact, I'm not allowed to, that I know of, ask the investigators the questions because we have to direct our questions to the chairman, who then can ask the questions, because as it was conveyed to me, we're not actually allowed to contact them directly. So there is, the dysfunction does not lie on behalf of the board, I can assure you that. I came in with fresh eyes. I was appointed by Lieutenant Governor Jones on December 22nd. And so I've been asking questions. I have questions. So that was one case where it would have been helpful to have investigators there. There were also some legal questions that would have helped to have had counsel there. Another situation is that in 2020, I filed an election board complaint concerning some shredding truck activity in Cobb County. And so I wanted to review that case file to see what is their process, what do they actually do? Did they interview the shredding company folks? Did they interview the director of elections? What exactly did they do? So I asked for a copy of the case file. Well, guess what? The state election board does not have copies of the case files. In fact, it's very difficult to find out what cases have been adjudicated, what cases are open, what cases lie in the hands of the Attorney General's office, what comes back from the Attorney General's office with recommendations. So we're knocking on the doors and we're not getting answers at the doors. And so we are very eager to see that corrected. And it would be great. I was looking forward and hoping that Secretary Raffensperger would be here today so that we could possibly get some of the same answers to questions that you may have. And we unfortunately don't get those answers. As to the case in Cobb County, I requested that case file. And I was told because I was a complainant that I would have to file an ORR. So here I sit on the state election board. It's a closed case. I thought I could get that. And so I asked Dr. Johnston if she would do me the favor of filing an ORR on my behalf, which is kind of bizarre. So that's kind of my quick rundown of what's going on the SEB.
All right. You want to take a few questions before Dr. Johnson goes, or you want to go ahead? Why don't you go ahead and speak to us, and then we'll take some questions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here and speak to all of you for a few minutes. I wasn't really sure what the topic of the day was, but I think I'm getting a picture of that now. But let me just say a few words about the State Election Board. We are evolving and still finding our way as a new entity that hopefully will continue to evolve into being an independent agency that provides oversight of elections. And for that, we would respectfully request time and attention toward proper staffing and budgeting to fund the State Election Board, anticipating that the staff of investigators and data analysts that we need for case tracking would allow us to fulfill the duties of the State Election Board. We would also request consideration to codify the rules to ensure the ones that perhaps have come before you that would comply with uniformity in elections across the state. We're very keen on uniformity because that is what NVRA and HAVA require, and we want to comply with that. The other thing that I would like, this is personal, I'm not speaking for the board, I'm just speaking personally myself, is a consideration of uniformity of county election boards. There are 159 counties in this state, and there are probably about 159 ways to compose compose an election board. I think uniformity would really help tremendously with counties that are struggling with representation. Some counties don't have full boards, perhaps for political reasons. They struggle with appointments by elected officials who may have political agendas or have bias. So your attention to that and perhaps some legislation that would make that uniform would help. My suggestion would be to have a 5-person board, have 2 Republican members, 2 Democrat members, and an alternating chair from one party or the other, with an alternating chair, so that at no one time will a board always be of one party majority. Likewise, a 3-person board, you could have 1 and 1 with an alternating chair. And I would suggest alternating that chair every 3 years, so that a majority would be different for every presidential election cycle. So a 3-year appointment for a chair would fulfill that need. So just a consideration for that. As far as election legislative priorities, I have 2 main ones and a third that is just an issue that's on your plate, I think, for this legislative session. My number 1 concern has been and will be voter rolls. Thus, I thank you for your resolution to share the voter rolls with the DOJ, because we see many cases of cross-state double voting allegations. And we are limited in evaluating or investigating voting in other states. We can get some information, but oftentimes it's incomplete. So the role that the DOJ might fulfill would be to check with cross-state double registrations, cross-state double voting. So I would highly recommend that. Within the state, we have challenges with voter rolls, whether it's the duplication problem coming from Department of Driver Services. It's one of those things when you register for a new license, you kind of get registered to vote again, and you get a double registration. It's a chronic problem, and it creates a constant cleanup problem for registrars, and it's a burden on them. My number 2 concern with elections is absentee voting. Absentee voting is the highest risk, the least secure method of voting. I would encourage you to try to find ways to encourage all voters, if possible, to vote in person. Not to withhold the ability to vote for someone who's disabled or very elderly or legitimately out of town, but please consider the elimination of no excuse absentee voting. And in line with absentee voting, we passed a resolution yesterday to recommend the discontinuation of drop boxes. Drop boxes were brought into the state for the COVID-19 pandemic. We no longer have a COVID-19 pandemic. It's an additional burden on the election offices to follow, to document, to provide a chain of custody, to take care that all those ballots are brought to the office to be processed. So voters can return their ballots to the post office. They have their mailbox right outside of their apartment or house. They can go to the election office and deliver their absentee by mail ballot, or they can certainly choose to vote in person. And finally, the QR code. This is what's on your plate for this session, and that's your challenge. And I'm going to leave that up to you to decide what to do about that. But it's July 1st is coming quickly, and I would encourage you to continue the transition to hand-marked paper ballots, and use the opportunity, if possible, if you could get the cooperation of the Secretary of State, to hold some of these small special elections between now and July using hand-marked paper ballots to gain some experience and some perspective on how easy it is and how cost-effective it is and how most of the country uses that method. In Georgia, there are about 110 to 20 counties that have one early voting site. Those counties have one place to early vote. All they need is to pre-print a calculated number of ballots and have those available at that one early voting site. There are only a few counties that have multiple early voting sites where ballot on demand printers would fill that need to produce ballots for the early voting period. That's your complicated period. And then for election day, pre-printed ballots are easy to use because they are supplied to the polling place.
All right. Well,
Okay.
well, thank you all. I think we've got a few questions here. I'll try to keep them in order. Mr. Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, ladies, for coming up. I really appreciate that. I had a couple of questions. The first one is you filed an open records request in Cobb County looking for the case that the lady referred to. Is that correct?
It has to be filed in my case you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
It has to be filed with the Secretary of State's office because at that time, the Secretary of State was the chair of the election board. And I'll never forget that hearing. It was in April of 2021 and it was by Zoom because COVID. Right. And I was pretty indignant and I started talking about redress of grievances and I got disconnected. So I never had a hearing and the case was just dismissed. So in order to get the records of that case, I was told that I had to file an open records request.
So you're saying you weren't nice like me?
Not at that time. I've learned a lot.
So so it has been filed?
Just filed.
And how recently?
Friday, maybe?
Just a couple of days
ago.
So, yes.
Just a couple of days ago?
Yes.
Okay, so you should be receiving a response within the next day.
72 hours.
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Well, I still don't understand since the state election board, I mean, it's kind of irrelevant that I was a Jane Q Public then, but I'm on the board now. And as a board member, I can't get the record.
And I think for purposes of caution, I can appreciate the fact that when it happened in the case that you were not on the election board.
I understand.
So I can still, and it's always best that we err on the side of caution on some of those things. So I can appreciate that. And do you have a number as far as when you were talking about budget that you needed appropriations to fully fund the elections board? Has a number been submitted for appropriations?
A budget has been submitted.
And do you have any idea what that number is?
I think Executive Director Mills requested about $1.3 million.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate y'all coming up today.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Going back to the resolution, we were talking about data breaches, but what I'm actually referencing is in this California case, United States versus Weber, specifically on page 18, where the DOJ acknowledges that they're allowing the Department of Homeland Security to use this information to actually look at people's verification. As far as
he was talking about immigration.
Non-resident. If they're allowing DHS to do that, they could allow other agencies to also go into those same roles. Does that give you any pause that is being used as a subterfuge? That DOJ is saying we want it for voting records, but acknowledges we're actually allowing people to use it for other reasons.
So I'm not familiar with the California information that you're referencing. I think the basic point that we need to get back to is none of this would be necessary. Our resolution would not be necessary. Your resolution would not be necessary if the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia had been complying with law and keeping our voter rolls clean and doing his job and ensuring that we do not have illegal voting going on in the state.
So, I understand what you're saying, but I'm asking you, it's in the case. There's no doubt the DOJ acknowledges that. So
I'll take your word for it.
I'm just asking, does that give you any pause that you're sending information up there?
Pause.
You're sending information up there that they're acknowledging. We're giving it to this organization. They could give it that. others too.
I understand. I also don't like giving my information to Salesforce. I've used Salesforce at work. There's been proven breaches with Salesforce. Does that give you pause?
That's a breach. This is a situation where I'm giving it to the DOJ under the guise of supposedly cleaning up voting rolls. And when they're placed under oath, they say, well, you know what? You're right. We basically are using that as a subterfuge. This is not a breach. Well, if they admit that they're giving it to Department of Homeland Security, when they're basically saying that they're supposed to be using it for voting, and they admit under oath that they're giving it to Department of Homeland Security, that's my terminology, but that's exactly what's really going on. But let's get to what you're saying about cleaning up the voter rolls. What makes Georgia's rolls unclean?
We have duplicate entries. For one thing, and we see it on the state election board. We have people that are registered more than once. We've had people, how many times, if I may ask Mr. Frazier, how many times have you seen people registered?
Every time I look.
But like twice, 3, 4 times?
Most was 11 times.
So Mr. Frazier works on cleaning up voter rolls. And if we had clean voter rolls, like I said, it wouldn't be necessary. And we heard cases yesterday where sometimes there's errors. And I'll give you an example. My mother, who passed away a little over a year ago, required Medicaid services. And so when you go on to the state of Georgia website and you have to sign up for Medicaid or whatever, it asks you, do you want to register to vote? I find that absurd. And I'm sitting there looking at that going, okay, like my mom's registered, and I'm like, so I asked the question, what happens if as a daughter, I didn't know if I'm sitting there with her going through it, or if she's elderly and she's doing it herself. And, I think I'm registered, but I'm not sure how often do I have to do that? Do I need to do this every few years or whatever? And you click register again, guess what? That creates another voter ID number. And so guess what? That's potential for someone else to use that voter ID to vote.
How many registered voters do we have in Georgia?
I have no idea. Mr. Frazier, do you know?
Around 8 million.
How many double registered voters do we have?
You know what? Let me ask the Secretary of State.
I'm asking you, Mayor.
I'm not the Secretary of State, and I'm not responsible for that.
We got a few more questions here, Mr. Leader. Chairman Burns.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate your service on the State Election Board. It is a thankless task. And you,
we're having fun.
and you endure it well. Thank you. And especially Dr. Johnson, you've been there a while. I'm grateful for that. And I appreciate Ms. Grubbs joining this opportunity. A couple of questions and then a little bit of history. Complaint resolution. So how many outstanding complaints are you currently trying to resolve?
Well, that's a good question because the Secretary of State investigators hold the investigations and we don't know how many there are.
So you do not know how many open investigations there are. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you cannot address those concerns. They're concerns submitted by citizens in a timely manner. Is that not true?
We've had people die before we hear their complaints.
Let me say, I made a complaint and it took 2 years to have my complaint resolved through the state election board process, through the Secretary of State's process, using the voter fraud thing. I appreciate your input on trying to provide some uniformity to local election boards. They've kind of evolved over the decades, and it seemed to be the plan of the day to kind of adopt new ones. We did do some consistency when we removed magistrates judges from that. Let me suggest that I have a concern with the Secretary of State not coming to this committee. And I do appreciate him showing up at Appropriations Committee yesterday. It's the first time I've seen him in 6 years, but I'm glad he made it yesterday. He chose not to make it today. I want to do a quick history lesson. SB 189. SB 189 was a bill that I proposed in 2023. If I understand it correctly, it's now 2026. Is that right? So in February the 15th of 2023, I submitted SB 189, which Section 7 of SB 189 called for the elimination of QR codes from ballots in Georgia. Is that not true? So 189 said get rid of QR codes. And we negotiated at that time with the Secretary of State's office to defer the implementation of that until July the 1st of 26. I'll be glad to read Section 7 of Senate Bill 189. But at the end of the day, the Secretary of State has had 3 years to address the elimination of QR codes from ballots in Georgia. And he has, to my knowledge, made no reasonable attempt to do that. Have you seen any attempt on his part to eliminate QR codes?
I have seen or heard of no action taken to eliminate QR codes.
He has not requested any resources. He has not presented any plan. The only thing he has asked for is to ignore the law. The governor signed the bill on May the 6th of 2024. So the governor signed SB 189 into Georgia law on May the 6th of 2024. It is now January of 2026, and the Secretary of State is not following Georgia law. What he wants this body to do, the legislature to do, is to provide him an extension so that he doesn't have to follow the law until he is no longer Secretary of State. And I have a problem with that. So my question is, if there's a question in this soliloquy, my question is, how do I get the Secretary of State to follow the law?
Is that a rhetorical question?
It is.
I think he did make one move or request, and that was for $66 million to upgrade the equipment so that he could remove the QR code perhaps and provide some other alternative, but I'm unclear with that. All I remember is $66 million, which sounded like a pretty steep price tag for an upgrade of the machines. And I'm not sure it's sort of like buying a whole system again.
I would agree. I would suggest that your suggestion for hand-marked ballots that are tabulated utilizing a current tabulation system that provides us with the image of the ballot as well as the ability to do effective audits would be a much less expensive alternative.
Senator Burns, may I offer that there's also the ability to do fast track legislation, because I don't know that any amount of pressure, clearly, if there's an invitation to come to a Senate ethics meeting, which I think ranks pretty high up there. I mean, I have to admit I was a bit nervous coming in. But I would think that that it is in your hands to get legislation passed. And let me also mention one other thing, and that is conflicts of interest. Because it is strange to me that the elephant in the room is the fact that the secretary is also running for governor. And it's very weird to me that there's absolutely no effort to change the way that we're voting, considering the fact that he is the chief elections officer in the state and also running for higher office. Does that worry anyone? So I would think it would be in the interest of the state of Georgia to vote with hand-marked paper ballots and to ensure, and the conflict of interest is also with enhanced voting. You have enhanced voting who is taking care of our election night reporting, and yet they're the ones performing the OCR audit. They are auditing their own work.
I wrote about that.
How does that make sense?
I appreciate your input, and I acknowledge the fact that with the lack of action on the part of the Secretary of State, the legislature is going to have to take the lead yet again to make sure that we have safe, secure elections in November of 2026. And I'm committed to do that. My colleagues in the Senate are committed to do that. My colleagues in the House are committed to do that. And we'll see how it works out. Thank you for your...
A few more. Some of us have a long drive today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Just a few questions and just points of information. I actually had a phone call today with my own county about concerns about this unfunded mandate to remove the QR codes. I believe you gave us a number around $66 million it would cost to remove QR codes. Is it not true that if the legislature does not appropriate those funds, that cost goes back on the counties themselves? Who will pay if the legislature does not appropriate funds to update the system to remove the QR code? Then who will pay for it?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The secretary has not made a formal request for any alternative system of providing elections without QR codes. He has made his request to the public, not to the legislature. So at this point in time, the only request he's made is $5 million request for a hand recount and $1.8 million for an OCR verification audit, which was misrepresented in our budget books because it said it was a tabulation count. It's not. It's a verification count. By the way, that system, the QR code or the OCR character recognition system, is not certified by EAC. Too many acronyms. But at the end of the day, the secretary has failed in leadership. He's failed to provide a reasonable proposal to follow Georgia law.
Mr. Chairman, if you may, to be clear, I'm not here to cap for anybody, particularly not the Secretary of State. I'm not here to defend him, but I am here to ask good, reasonable questions. And I would like to know if this legislature, if this body, along with the House and the governor's signature, if we do not appropriate the funds required and necessary to remove the QR code, who pays for it? Does it not fall on the backs of my counties, your counties, 159 counties? Is that not true?
I would agree. I would also suggest that we will do our job despite the Secretary's lack of that.
Senator Jackson, may I also offer the fact that you have backup balloting processes?
Yep.
I just,
Well,
I just have another question, if I may.
Okay, go ahead. We got several more here.
Yeah, I understand. So also, I just want to follow up. You all both have spoken to you, Ms. Grubbs and Ms. Johnson has spoken about the Secretary of State's investigators not providing you all with information that you would need. But early in your testimony, Ms. Grubbs, you spoke to the fact that there are 1.5 investigators allocated to the SEB. So I understand you were just appointed. I got your lovely email. So you may not be able to answer the question given you've been on board for only 3 weeks, but perhaps you can. Can you tell us what are your investigators doing with their time? What are they discovering? Are you getting content? Are you able to get a kind of a view into the complaints from your own investigators that the state has allotted to you?
So our investigators have been on board for a year. And they have spent the time implementing a case management software program that we would really love to have help with so that we may track new cases and the status of and provide that not only for the state election board, but hopefully for the public that people can check if they filed a complaint and a case number was assigned, that they could go online and check the status of that. Or if a case has been completed and closed, that they could pull that up and see the summary of the complaint. So we're excited about that. They've also assisted in preparing the meetings that we've had and reviewing the cases that the Secretary of State investigators have presented to us to assist in that meeting process. But at the same time, the Secretary of State decided that their investigators would no longer come to the meetings to present the cases. So it's sort of put a whole new perspective on how we present these cases.
Because they incriminated themselves every time they
summary
spoke.
Investigation and the report of investigation written by the Secretary of State investigators, and we have to act upon that based on that information and the responses of the respondent and the complainants that come to the meetings.
Right. So I just want to make sure I understood the answer to your question. So you have 2 investigators that work for the SEB who have spent a year not doing investigations, but instead working on software and preparing your meetings. Am I understanding? Is that what your testimony is saying?
No, what you need to understand is the Secretary of State will not allow our investigators to investigate. They will not allow our investigators to have the files of investigations, and they will not bring our investigators in under their designation of having post-certified investigators. So they also will not let our investigators access Jarvis, the voter registration system for investigation, or any other files in the Secretary of State's office. So they're very limited.
This is my last question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that there are many cases of cross-state voting due to our voting rolls not being kept clean despite our enrollment in ERIC, all of the bilateral agreements that we have that were
Not
referenced
despite,
before,
because of.
despite the fact that people from my own party have sued the Secretary of State multiple times for cleaning the rolls too often. But you've said that there are many cases of cross-state voting. Can you quantify that? What is many? How many cases of cross-state voting do you estimate they're happening in our state?
There are, I would say, allegations of cross-state voting, and I would have to research that to give you an exact answer on that. But I can share with the group that just last week, we received a package from the Department of Justice for 10 possible cross-state voters. They sent a package to us to investigate, and all 10 of these voters were from Georgia and voted in Georgia and possibly another state.
Well, I hope our investigators that you have on SEB might be able to do their work.
Well, if they could
perhaps.
access Jarvis, it would be great.
All right. Mr. Leader, number 14.
Yeah, just really brief question, this clarity, something Senator Burns was asking in the back and forth. So you're saying that no one knows, or the secretary won't disclose the overall number of investigations? Just like if we call the sheriff's office, the police department, like there's no tally of how many open cases or anything else in terms of transparency, just like Keystone Cops would have, that, is provided easily to the public, to the media. No offense, Senator Robertson. But I mean, that just to me is astonishing that even on back of the napkin math that, I mean, even some of my police officers in my community could do in their sleep. I mean, that doesn't exist, or it won't be disclosed.
Well, how a little of the story of how this evolved was we started hearing news media articles and newspaper articles about the backlog of state election board cases. And when I quizzed the AJC reporter about his source and how did he know, because we did not know how many cases there were, backlog of cases, then we sort of came to maybe a showdown, if you might call it that. And the Secretary of State at that point provided us with 250 completed investigations. And so that was a big step in us in the state election board understanding at least some scope of the whole problem or issue. And but we have still did not know how many active investigations were taking place. And since that first file of 250 in October was provided to us, we've asked if there are any more completed investigations, which we're not sure about. The communication is not always very prompt, but we did receive, we heard some number like 75, but we're not real sure. And we did get some cases, and we're just not sure if they're open, active, or open completed. But I will share with you, by the February meeting, we have on the agenda the completed cases, and we will have, and if we are able to follow that agenda for the February meeting, we will have heard all of the completed cases that have been provided to us.
But So you're saying provided
So-
to us, but you don't know if there's others.
But we don't know what we don't know, correct?
Right. So there's a lack of transparency that maybe we would find in other aspects of government. And the only thing I would ask is, I don't know if that's a legislative policy opportunity or whatever. I think my dear friend from Atlanta that said earlier that we should have hours and hours of hearings and everything else for transparency when we're debating this resolution. I mean, if that's true, maybe that's an opportunity to my dear friend, the minority leader, to require transparency as it relates to what is the number of active investigations, what does that look like to bring some sort of semblance and facts kind of back to it. Not necessarily, I think Senator Robertson would say we don't need to know the details of an open and active investigation. I mean, those things that would be inappropriate. But I think at least some level of data to the public that if Senator Burns is filing a complaint and doesn't hear anything for 2 years, I mean, that's like somebody robbing my house and calling the sheriff and saying, hey, we'll get back to, let's say, hey, we'll get back to you in 2 years. I mean, that's completely unacceptable if these are investigators who, are given special powers to investigate. And in some cases, like some of our other constitutional officers, lock people up and put them in jail. So I think that's a concern and maybe an opportunity. So we truly know the veracity of, what's going on. That's all.
I will share with you that last week, Executive Director Mills received a file of, I think it was 75 or so cases. I'm not sure. He wasn't clear if they were still in investigation or completed.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate, not to beat a dead horse here, but, in this entire thing, whether it's Republicans or the minority party or the Secretary of State, if he even exists, since he's not here, there's all this, we think we know, or we may know, or whatever. The data is the data and the facts are the facts. It's either one case or 100 cases. I mean, we need to get to that level. And I think regardless of whether, they're, kind of for people in the state or for your position, or, as respectfully to my friend, Senator Jackson, or if there's things like maybe she disagrees with others, I think at the end of the day, I think we want the facts and we want to know what are those numbers. And I think it makes it really hard to legislate and come up with, sound, great, awesome public policy if we're not going to have those numbers to, I think, make these decisions. So again, I am, I've sat in the appropriations meetings when the secretary has decided to blow off the legislature in the past. I don't think that's appropriate. If you're a constitutional officer, you shouldn't be running for the hills and afraid to answer questions. I go back to West Georgia, and Ms. Grubbs knows this. I'm not afraid to have a debate in public with anybody. I don't care where you're from, what you look like, whether you grew up there or not. That's why we got elected, and that's what we should do. And I hope that, the people wanting to run for higher office, trying to be political, because they want to have it their way, will listen to the citizens, regardless of whether they're from my party or the minority party. I think they should stand up and answer the questions, or at least provide the facts. And if they can't, they should either just admit it or go find some other hobby to take up.
Chairman Harmon. Yes, sir. Thank you. And I'll keep this short. I want to thank you ladies for your efforts and for your work. It's not very thankful. You don't get many thank you notes probably from people around the state. First of all, I want to say this: to get rid of the drop boxes, we need to get rid of them as quickly as possible. There's no sense in carrying on that and the requirements that are going on and all that goes on. And I think that's something we need to take on as a body. I think it's a shame that you vote and it's a QR code and you can't tell what you voted on. That is absolutely an atrocity. It's something that we need to deal with, and we need to deal with it quickly. We have technology today that didn't exist 5 and 6 years ago on the optical scanning capability that is so far advanced that to tell me that you can't read a ballot, I'm sorry, you'll lie about other things as far as that portion. I think the Secretary of State, to fail to have a representative here, we need to play that on a commercial for the people running against him for governor. I will say this of our current governor. I have texted him or called him. He has been responsive each and every time. And I want to thank Governor Kemp for being responsible to the people of this state. It bothers me that when a constitutional officer blows off or whatever, at least have a representative represent you at a Senate hearing. And I think it's a total disregard for this legislative body. Maybe the Appropriations Committee needs to just put his budget at zero until he decides to come to a meeting. I'm sorry, but if you were in business, we would fire you. We're government. We're going to elect you as governor. I don't think so. I just think this. We need to be responsible to the people because the people that created the government. The government did not create the people, and we need to serve the people of Georgia appropriately. And I thank you for all that y'all do and for the battles that you put up. Thank you very much.
Vice Chair Williams.
My turn. In 1999, I became Chief Registrar of Baldwin County under Secretary of State Lewis Massey. Served under Lewis Massey, Kathy Cox, Karen Handel, Brian Kemp, and then I made the big jump. But anyway, we've had paper ballots for many, many years. You know what they call? Absentee ballots.
That's right.
We used to scan those things with the OptiScan. This was back in 1999, 2000. Those elections sometimes would be won by one vote. And they would be challenged and there would be a recount. And we came up with the same darn number. They're accurate. This was before this. The technology now is so surpassed. It's just amazing what fellow senator was talking about, the OptiScan. Senate Bill 189. I think I made an amendment to that, offered an amendment to that bill to do away with drop boxes.
You did.
So anyway, we're still trying to get them done. You have the Bible on your desk. What year edition is that?
This is the most recent edition. Excuse me. This is 2024.
2024.
Yes, sir.
That's the state election code. And when I was appointed as chief registrar and the members of my board, we were not Republicans or Democrats. We were interpreting the codes and the laws of the state of Georgia. It had nothing to do with party. There's not a section of that book that refers to Republicans, and there's not a section of that book that refers to Democrats. It refers to the election, how it's going to be carried out lawfully, legally, and what votes are going to be counted and what you will do to comply with the elections. And that's, the parties, if anything, the board members and the board I stay in contact with that I left, they're not bipartisan. They all tell me they're nonpartisan. And that's how they really feel, because they're not picking and choosing winners. They're following the law. And that's what we expect everyone to do. We're expected to follow the law. I'll get stopped speeding on my way home probably tonight, and I will be, guilty. But anyway, thank you. Anyway, thank y'all. Appreciate your work.
Last one, and we're going to close this thing down. Mr. Leader, is that you? You got a comment?
It was just a quick comment, just to let everybody know. I mean, we can go to the issue about the backlog investigations. I don't know about that, but you can actually go to the Georgia Secretary of State website, and there's a transcription of all y'all's meetings where you actually have the hearings where you have these complaints. And that goes back from 2025 all the way down to 2007. So when we talk about transparency, there is there. And persons can actually go read every single complaint. They can read what the investigator says. They can read what the Board of Elections says. And it's interesting reading, but I do want to say, as far as transparency is concerned, it is there, and you ought to have an opportunity to read. And it also will give you an opportunity to understand what actual kind of complaints are actually filed in the state of Georgia. They're very interesting kind of complaints.
They are, aren't they? Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. I said that was the last one, but the leader on the other side.
No, because Senator Jones brings up a great, it's actually, he's right. It's a great point. But I think for those that to kind of cut to the chase in layman's terms, and maybe they need a AI button on the SOS website or something just to summarize some of these meetings, especially if they're having an 11-hour meeting. I mean, I think that's part of it. But I also think too, at least under, the current SOS, what about the meetings that maybe don't necessarily show up, whether it's at this meeting or maybe some others? I mean, there's other meetings I'm sure they're doing that lead to potential investigations or other things. But I think whatever can be done to make that easier for the public. I mean, I do agree with you, Senator. I do think that is a tremendous opportunity for both sides to kind of figure out, so people know that, when we're putting numbers out here in public or anywhere else, those are the facts. And I think that is a very easy question. If the secretary was here, wanted a layup, I think he probably would have got maybe a unanimous vote from all of us in trying to solve that problem. But since he wasn't here, I guess he'll keep sitting on the bench.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Thank y'all for being here. Thank you for your service and for all the hard work that you do. Thank you, members of the committee, for staying late for this meeting. Appreciate all of that. And just in reference to funding on Senate Bill 189, our Commissioner of Agriculture was in a meeting on Tuesday, and he was requesting additional funds for his department because that's what the state of our agriculture needed to do better and improve. And he made that request to us, but we didn't hear that yesterday from the Secretary of State. So thank you, members. Y'all be safe going home and be safe this weekend. And thank y'all.
All right. So it wasn't any crazy fireworks there, but still some good stuff.
Yeah, a bit annoying. That the matter of the criminality didn't come up. I have some breaking news though.
What?
Ryan Macias is still advising clerks.
Yep.
Ryan Macias is currently at the Colorado County Clerks Association. He has a new endeavor called the Election Security Group, the Election Security Exchange, ESX, that is being set up to do secondhand information here, but to do what CISA used to do for local election officials. So the NGOs are now building out their own shadow infrastructure that they used to have built inside of the executive branch. I'd just like to remind everyone that Ryan Macias should be in prison.
I was about to say, I think he might have some legal issues here coming up very shortly, like very, very shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
I was told that he claims local election officials call him all the time crying because they don't know what to do without CISA. And so ESX, this is my interpretation of what I was told, so it's not a direct quote. But so he's, setting it up. Yeah, John Drake says, sounds a lot like fortifying. Does sound like they're trying to figure out how to fortify again, doesn't it?
Until Valhalla Call says, Lupo, who sent the bottle? I got to know, and I got permission to tell you, so I can tell you who sent the bottle. So let's recap this. At the end of Rossi's hearing, or a series of questions at the hearing, he said skip over that question because it's kind of a social media Jerry Springer type question. The question was, following the meeting on July 9th, the one where Lindsay, board member Lindsay, was going to remote in, and Fervier, the chairman of the board, was texting him, hey, don't come in. You don't want any part of this. And Fervier tries to say it's because he thought he was drunk because he used a bourbon emoji or something like that. That's not the real reason. They skipped that question, said, following that meeting, a bottle of vodka was sent to the chair, meaning to Fervier. I don't know who sent it or why they sent it, but it came from the Secretary of State's office, I believe, which raises more questions. Why is a bottle of vodka being given to the chair following a difficult and contentious meeting? Who sent the bottle of vodka to the chairman and for what reason? And I am told it was sent by Jordan Fuchs.
No kidding. Jordy.
And I got this through a text.
We didn't get a for what reason.
No, this is through a text message.
Seems like a thank you. Thank you for, oh, yay.
All
Look
right.
who we got.
Look who's joining us.
Yay.
Look who's joining us. Mr. Garland Favorito,
Hey,
man of the
Garland.
hour.
What?
Man of the hour. How you doing?
Great. Great, y'all. Thanks for all the great coverage y'all are doing there. And I want to answer that question about the Jordan Fuchs and the bottle of what was it? Was it bourbon?
Vodka.
Vodka, that's right. So that July 9th meeting was very interesting. If you remember, and I think I got my dates right. Yeah, that was the day that we testified. And I say we, it was Philip Davis, attorney Harry McDougall. It was myself and I'm having a memory dump at the moment.
Clay Perique.
Clay, of course. How could I forget Clay? Thank you.
It's all in my head.
So here's why I believe that Jordan Fuchs gave him that. So and I can't remember if it was at the 9th or the 10th, but he left the meeting open. He did not close it out. The next day, he left the meeting open again on the 10th. When the board members, the good board members, found out about it, it was, and they had to schedule, you remember this, Brian, really well. They had to schedule another meeting on the 12th, Friday the 12th, to close out the meeting on the 9th and the 10th. Now, the question is, why did he leave those meetings open? And the answer is that he left them open and failed to close them properly because it would have purged all of our testimony, all of the expert witness testimony for SEB 2023-025. And he did that, and that was intentional, and that is why and of course he could tell me it's not, but I'm sure it is. That's why he did that, and that resulted in a lawsuit against the board as they claimed illegal meeting. You remember all that fiasco, and all they did was close out the previous meeting. So this chairman has been subversive to every single type of, everything on this investigation. We have a list of stuff that he's done to prevent SEB 2023-025 from being investigated properly. So just wanted to throw that out there.
So his explanation that his mind has been changed over the past few years and he was just in a different place than just, working for efficiency, et cetera. You don't buy that?
Not at all. And I was about to jump down his throat, come back up again. Joe seemed to want to give him a break, and we don't really know why.
Joe's a nice guy.
He is. I texted him, when he was leaving, and I said, Joe, you're just too nice. We needed to hold him accountable right there, on the spot. I think that everybody was prepared to do that. We've had a lot of people call for his resignation. I've called for it a couple of times. Publicly, in my comments directly to him. It's just an incredible position to be in when you've got the chairman of the board who is intentionally subverting election integrity, complaints, and he's the chairman of the election board. It's unbelievable.
Garland, let me ask you real quick. I can't hang out much longer because I do have my buddy up thing tonight. And maybe Garland, if you're available, maybe tomorrow night, 7:30, you can join us on Why We Vote, because we're going to go over this again and more in depth. We're going to get to the back end of the Rossi expose.
And as many of you guys down in Georgia that participated in making this a reality, we're going to try and have on tomorrow's show. It'll be a bit of a victory lap for you guys. So hope you can make it.
Yeah, that would be great. That would actually be better for me because we have had a tremendous week. We had a press conference on Monday to announce our voting system security standards. I think y'all got that. Another one on Tuesday for information that Phil Searcy has put out, and that shows that the Dominion system exceeds federal error rates. Excuse me. And then on Wednesday, yesterday was a hearing, today's the ethics committee. So, and as you can tell, I'm pretty sick. So tomorrow would be much better.
Okay, so just real quick, I want to get your your reaction to Fulton County knowing since November 19th, 2020, the hand count discrepancies were real.
Yeah, that was stunning. I actually did not know about that either, Brian. I heard you mention that.
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. So don't feel bad. So I'm interesting that probably they uncovered an email. I am betting our friend Kevin Monkler had something to do with that. I don't know that for a fact.
I would bet, although if that's the case, Kevin, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't call me like a giddy schoolgirl yelling about it, but that's okay. Some things
Or me.
Some things you got to keep.
Well,
close.
you know, he's working on some hot stuff, so we'll have to cut Kevin all the slack he needs. But yeah, so I was really surprised. It was pretty, you know, you'd have to be kind of an idiot not to know, if you worked in Fulton County, not to know that audit didn't add up. I was there the day they found the counterfeit ballots. Susie Voiles and Barbara Hartman, and they found those on the floor. I was not on the floor. We had 6 witnesses that signed sworn affidavits the next night that they had found those counterfeit ballots. And of course, y'all know the story. We knew they were counterfeit because they weren't folded from being mailed. They had to have been mailed. They weren't written with a writing instrument. They weren't on the correct paper stock, and they were voted the same way down ballot for a dozen in a row. So that's kind of the back story on that. But I was amazed. That one, I want to see that email.
Yes.
And particularly since it was the elections group who we knew was a problem all along, Mike Pendergrass. So that was really interesting.
Yes, I remember I did like a whole podcast episode. Gateway Pundit actually published it before I wrote for them on Morell, who was the director at the elections group. I did a whole podcast on her back in like 2021, maybe. And for me to see, as soon as I saw Pendergrast, I was like, holy shit, it's elections group. And then Macias. And I don't know if you heard what Ash just said about what Macias is doing right now.
No, I did miss that.
Did you
part.
miss it? Oh, yeah, no, at this moment, well, I think at this moment he's hanging out with Matt Crane, but they're at the Colorado County Clerks Association meeting advising clerks, and Macias is launching the Election Security Exchange because, as I'm told, and this is my summary of what I was told, so it's, third hand, as he gets calls from local election officials crying because they miss CISA so much. And so they need something in that gap. And so he's starting the Election Security Exchange. Ryan Macias, still walking around, breathing free air, advising clerks, Garland.
Wow. And now what exactly is he going to exchange?
Yeah. So hold on. I'll read you what it says here. It says.
And while you're looking for that, Ash, go ahead if you got it.
Partnership for Security. We're you local election officials can partner with ESX to bridge gaps in election security and strengthen your systems. If you have questions, you can ask our experts. You can ask Ryan Macias if you have questions. Knowledge sharing. Invite ESX to events and conferences to share expertise and insights. Resource access. Access the ESX resource library for trusted nonpartisan election security materials. Stay updated by subscribing to our newsletters for timely updates on election security developments.
Very interesting. Please send me that. And so that means that our hearing yesterday had national implications. But I want to. And by the way,
hang on a second, Garland. That's no question because the elections group was involved in elections around the country, and so to me, at that moment, the email communications confirm that the results don't match. Shoot it off to elections group. Comes back, everything matches. That whole thing implicates anything they were involved in any election state in any around the country, no matter the municipality. It's all called into question. You're muted.
Garland, you're muted.
Garland, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. It just suddenly muted. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that at the end of my testimony to the election board yesterday. So I wanted to reiterate that to them Joe mentioned it, but I wanted to make sure they got that point. You know, that the elections group was responsible for that backfilling of 16 or 17,000 votes to make everything supposedly add up, even though it never really did. But I wanted to also to mention, and I think y'all saw this, but our last press conference, which I think was December the 22nd, we went after Matt Crane hard, calling for a federal investigation. And just a quick story on that is he claims to represent all of the clerks in Colorado. Well, we did CORA request, as y'all know, the Colorado Open Records Request Act. And we asked for what clerks, give me any documentation that you have where you approved his analysis of the Mesa forensic reports. And it was posted on the website, the CCA website, as though it represented the consensus opinion of all 64 Colorado County clerks. And guess how many clerks actually approved that?
4 or 5, I think.
So I don't
Zero.
think none of
Zero.
them did.
So I know
4 or 5.
that they had a discussion because there's on the Colorado County Clerks Association, there's like a board, right, of actual clerks that work with Matt Crane. And usually when they put something out for the clerks, they have a discussion with those 4 or 5 people, and they're all Secretary of State office friendlies. And they have that discussion, and then they'll say, well, we decided. And with the last one, with the Tina Peters thing, where they said, please don't move her, one of the clerks came out and actually said, this is not my position. This doesn't speak on behalf of me.
Right.
So.
And we only found 4 or 5 so far of written agreements with that Tina Peters letter that Crane sent to Governor Polis, but we found no written agreements whatsoever. Like you said, I'm sure that the board maybe discussed it verbally, but no one put their name, their writing, their John Henry on that. John Hancock, I guess it is.
And not for nothing, this is one of the biggest problems I have with this entire this architecture of the way this is constructed, is that anything that's happening in those forums should be subject to open records. When Matt Crane is talking to clerks and they're deciding on what to come out with a position on behalf of all Colorado clerks, and they're all that's business. They're doing business, and that should be subject to open records laws. But because it's done by a third-party NGO, the Colorado County Clerks Association, and this election security infrastructure around the country NGO, they're the kind of shadow authorities. Because of that, it's not subject to open records. It's just a black box like everything else in the space.
Yeah. So we went after the clerks end of that, because if there was any communication going to it from the clerks, then we can get that.
Yeah. And what we found, just one more little anecdote, in the case of Tina Peters, the clerk prior to Tina Peters was Sheila Reiner. And what we found after Tina Peters took over, Sheila Reiner kept her Dominion credentials and was, at least as has been reported, communicating and working with Dominion while she was no longer the clerk, while she had no authorities over elections. She was Tina Peters was sitting in her seat, and she was, it appears, still actively working behind the scenes with the election authorities, despite not holding that role anymore.
Wow.
She was the one that was put in as the replacement for Tina by the Secretary of State's office when Tina was removed. But prior to that, she kept her Dominion credentials and was actively working. It's crazy what happened here.
And then we find out Matt Crane's wife is a career Dominion employee.
Yeah, I mean, we've known that since 2020, 2021. Yeah. She's vested and long had a long
gone.
Yeah.
She predates Eric Coomer.
Yep.
Let me jump in here, because you got Ash going on Colorado. Somehow we brought Colorado up on a Georgia exclusive threat. No, it's not your fault. Ash will talk about Colorado all day, every day. Like that's
I'm getting more and more interested in that too.
Because it's the same sources and methods across states. That's why.
I agree.
That's why Georgia and Colorado and Minnesota and all of these states can have nothing to do with solving it, with investigating and solving this problem, because they all covered it up and obstructed it for 6 years.
Yeah. Well, that's
and
why
Garland would say way more than 6 years, I think.
Yeah. That's why it's so important.
Right now. I would say 25, but
so Garland, you'll jump on with us tomorrow night on Why We Vote.
Yeah, I think I can be there. What time are we?
7:30.
7:30 Eastern.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Mark that. That'll be fun.
All right, guys.
I'll feel a little bit better. I won't be coughing, through the whole show and
Hopefully you feel better. Tell your wife I say hello. She's a
I
sweetheart.
will. Maybe
I
I'll.
was looking for her in the hearing yesterday. I didn't see her. She's always like front and center.
Looks
Well,
like she's supposed to be.
She was there. I don't know if you noticed, but when just before they called me up, she had the red coat on. She passed in front of the camera. She was handing out my presentation to the committee members.
I saw that. I thought that was her. Guys, check out Garland's work, voterga.org. Support his fight over there. He is one of the OGs in election integrity, an absolute badass. You guys saw him in the presentation we played earlier, and we'll get him on Why We Vote tomorrow night.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Garland.
God bless, Garland. Take care.
In my defense, it was relevant because Ryan Macias was one of the key kind of explosive moments of that hearing, and he's here right now advising clerks.
He's probably listening to us right now.
We live in Matt Crane's head. I have been told.
I know that. I know that. PJ Corrigan says, thank you, Ash and CannCon, for your tireless work on exposing the election fraud industrial complex that has taken control and assumed sovereignty of our country and our lives. That one was over on my channel. Thank you, PJ. Fungible Fanny says the first to state his case seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. Proverbs 18:17. Perhaps this is why they refuse to let the other side make a statement. Delay, delay, delay. Yeah, they clearly didn't let them rebut that debate, that presentation from the Secretary of State, because it was atrocious. It was atrocious. It was a shit show.
Facts.
One Ohio gal now. Thank you, Ash and Brian, for staying on top of this for years. You are appreciated. And I don't think there's any more, but I don't have the 8.
I have one from over on my channel, Doc from Amish PA. They are all in on it. Yes, even the ones we like.
All right. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Please smash that thumbs up. Jump over, if you're watching on Badlands, jump over to rumble.com/CannCon and rumble.com/Ash in America or My America. Rumble.com/MyAmerica, rumble.com/CannCon. Give us a follow over there, and be sure to stick around. What's today? Thursday. So we got sit rep coming up at 9 p.m.
And we will finish the hearing and the outset, all of that tomorrow night on Why We Vote. So this is kind of a bonus Why We Vote.
Yeah. Denise Ann, last second. This is fantastic news. Thanks for all your hard work, Garland. Also, be safe for those in the path of this winter storm. It's going to be a cold week ahead for those of us in its path.
Supposed to be -1 here for me this weekend.
You guys can come on down to Florida. It is going to be absolutely gorgeous. Let's see, just to rub it in. High tomorrow, highs of 81.
Nice.
Lows of, we got 43 next week though. So maybe the cold front's coming across the country and hitting us.
-1, Brian. -1.
I'm not about that life.
Not about it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Please hit the like, and we'll see you guys later.
All right. Take care.